that when any of you who will be the future officer of my ministry, we will be able to work together, right? Or even if you work at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, at Ministry of Economy and Finance, we will be someday sitting together working on trade issues, because trade issues have been right now relevant to all ministry in charge. Okay, for example, when we talk about the indeed, when we talk about the information, for example, as I told you last time, our government in the last 3 years decided to close the office of AFA, Radio Free Asia, and also the VOA in Cambodia. And then it's actually about information, but it's actually the commitment of Cambodian trade and service that we have submitted to the WTO in our schedule of commitment in 2010 or something, that we already closed the provisions of broadcasting service by the foreigner. So it's our right to respect our own commitment we have submitted to the WTO. So it's the case of broadcasting, okay, about radio, about something, but it is under the ambit or the purview of the international trade law, which has been committed by Cambodia and in its schedule of commitment, okay, the service sector. So you can see here, even environment is also very relevant to international trade. Why? Because when we talk about the environmental service provided by the foreigner to Cambodia, we will also check with the Ministry of Environment of Cambodia whether they can allow the foreign service supplier of environment, for example, environment impact assessment. It must be done by the foreigner before they can convince the foreign investor to invest in Cambodia. So they do not really trust our local environmental assessor. So they decided to hire foreign expert to provide the EIA, environmental impact assessment to Cambodia in Cambodia. So they want to get the report by the EIA foreign expert, and then they will consider whether or not they will come to invest in Cambodia. But our service commitment does not allow the, supply of environmental impact assessment service by the foreigner. Okay, and right now a lot of foreign delegates, for example, from EU and the rest of the world, try to convince the Cambodian government to open the liberalizations of the EIA expert, environmental impact assessment expert, to perform service in Cambodia. Okay, so it is right now in a progress. And also the foreign lawyer, as you can see, the European Union, when I was in charge of the European Union issue back in the last 4 months, the European delegation, when they were talking with us since 2019, when we talk physically, and up until now, when we talk online, they always try to convince the Cambodian government, especially my ministry, to open the legal service. Okay, the commitment of Cambodia to open legal service in order to allow the foreign lawyer to provide legal service in Cambodia. But this kind of service provision, if we allow, would actually endanger our Cambodian legal supplier, for example, lawyer, alternate lawyer, who are right now trying to improve the English to provide foreign service, to provide English-based legal service to the investor in Cambodia. So if we allow the foreign lawyer to provide legal service in Cambodia, the foreign direct investor in Cambodia will no longer depend on the Cambodian lawyer to provide some legal service to them. So they decided to refer to the foreign lawyer that are allowed to perform service in Cambodia. So it's very hazardous. It's very dangerous for our job opportunity of Cambodian lawyer. That is why before we decide to open or close any sector and service in our commitment schedule, we need to consult with all line ministry, okay, line or relevant agency, relevant authority before we can make any final decision. Because even though it is the issue of international trade, it is of course the issue that are under the ambit or under the purview of line ministry, line authority. Okay, so do not just say I'm the Ministry of Commerce, I can decide everything that are related to trade. No, everything must be consulted, okay, with the line ministry or line agency. Okay, this is the procedure of work in the public sector. You cannot do something on your own well alone. Okay, so that is just some warm-up reminder for you guys to know that, because I think in the next semester when you graduate, you will be stepping into the public sector or private sector. So you have to know about the working culture there before you do anything that is again the professionalism integrity. Most of the new officer, when they pass the entrance examination into the public sector, they are very arrogant. Okay, they are very arrogant. This seems like I'm gonna be the senior officer in the next 5 years, for example. But no, when you step into the real working environment, trust me, you're gonna be kind of in the middle of nowhere. Okay, if you have no network, if you have no real capacity, if you have no master, for example, if you have no good relationship with your college, you cannot move higher. You will be left off the grid, and then you will say, I'm very happy to work for state because I'm not quite busy. I'm right now very free. I can enjoy, I can walk around, I can drink coffee everywhere. No, that is not what the potential officers should expect. You should expect to be used by the leader, and then they will see you, but they will see your potential, they will notice your potential, promote you to get higher position that you can execute, or you can give some recommendation to the leader. Okay, so that is my experience I want to share with you guys. Okay, I'm working for the ministry with no network, with nobody that I can rely on, but only 1 year, 2 year, they notice me, my hard work, and then we try to take risk, and then yeah, I got the chance to that point right now. Okay. All right, guys. So last week we talked a lot about the tariff measure, and I think you know quite well about the types and also forms of tariff measure. Tariff, for example, we got the bond rate. Okay, we got the applied rate, applied tariff, bond tariff, and then we also got some two forms of the tariff. For example, the specific tariff, mixed tariff. Okay, what else? The compound tariff. Okay, what else? The last one is technical tariff, and about the definition of each one, and then also got some example. For example, the Japanese sue sold into Cambodia. What tariff form that we should apply in order to get the most income generated? Okay, so you know quite well, and you also undertook one quiz. Okay, so today we're gonna move on to the new chapter regarding non-tariff measure. And as you know, when I taught you for the first 2 weeks in my course here, during the first inception of the GATT negotiation, okay, we realized that negotiation on tariff is quite easier than negotiation on non-tariff measure, because tariff is about something that is number based, that is index based. Okay. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna give you the slide. I forgot. Sorry, I'm gonna upload the slide after we finish this chapter, right? So don't worry. Okay. Okay, so without further delay, let me go to the slide, okay, on non-tariff measure. Actually, I want to give you some background, but let us just move on right now, okay. All right. So wait, guys, I'm sharing the screen. Wait, sorry, my computer does not process well. I don't know why it takes so long. Okay, it's coming out right now. So here's the screen. Wait. All right, guys, can you see the slide right now or not yet? Confirm me right now.
Not yet.
Okay, not yet. Okay,
Not yet.
Okay, wait. Be patient, all right? Okay, we got it. Okay, it's right now working now.
We can see it now.
All right, okay. So you guys can see it right now?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, okay, very good. Okay, very good, guys. So here is the non-tariff measure, NTM. Okay, so I'm going to tell you what does it mean. Okay, what it does mean. Okay, As I always do before I step into my lecture on certain chapter, I always start with some notion, okay, some notion in order to give you some background, some warm up issue regarding the topic that we are going to study today. And the first question that come in the slide is the definition of the word non-tariff measure. What are non-tariff measure? Whether the word non-tariff measure here are defined under WTO law or not, okay? So I want to make it simple, okay, make it very short and simple. When we talk about non-tariff measure, we refer to the measure, the barrier that are beyond tariff, okay, that are beyond tariff, okay. Some people got confused. They said that tariff measure is the measure that concern tariff, and non-tariff measure is the fact that there is no tariff. Meaning that the word non-tariff here means no tariff, no barrier, no measure. No, the word non-tariff measure here refer to the measure that cause obstacle to international trade. But those measures are not tariff. Okay, again, they are the measure. They are the measure that cause the barrier to international trade in import and export between country and country, territory and territory. However, they are not tariff. Okay, they are not tariff. So what do you mean by being not tariff? Meaning that the measures that are not imposed by using tariff. It can be a way of using technical standard, using packaging standard, using SPS, using rule of origin, using inspection, using ban and quota, using some other forms of technical issue in order to impose barrier to international trade. However, they are not tariff. Okay, they are not tariff. Okay, and there are no definition under the WTO law ambit so far because the word non-tariff measure here are quite ambiguous, are quite vague. Because why? Because as long as it is not tariff, it is called non-tariff measure. So it might be new measure that might be recently designed. So if you define the word non-tariff measure, for example, non-tariff measure include A, B, C, D. So what about E, F, G, A that will be designed, newly designed by the state in the recent year? So what about so we need to update the definitions of a non-tariff measure year by year, month by month, or whatsoever. Okay, so we cannot do so. So we make it obvious, we make it general as long as it is not tariff. Okay, it is not tariff. That is why we have no any law or provision of the WTO that define the word non-tariff measure. Okay, so to make it clear, we have not seen any law that define the word non-tariff measure under WTO. Okay. Do non-tariff measures restrict only trade in goods? No, non-tariff measures not only restrict trade in goods, but also restrict trade in service. I'm going to explain to you the next slide how the non-tariff measure really restrict the trade in service beyond goods. Okay, and why are non-tariff measures seen as the understudied issue? Okay, I think you can guess from your own sense. When we talk about a tariff measure, it's quite easy. We can just see the bound rate, apply rate. Okay, we can see the number right there in our schedule of concession that we submitted to the WTO. The rest of the world submitted to the WTO. So we can see the tariff out there. For example, how much percentage of the tariff on certain item, on mango, on banana, on iPhone, on a bicycle. It's quite clear and obvious. But non-tariff measures are not regulated there. Okay, they might be the policy, they might be the law regulation, they might be the requirement, they might be some, for example, technical review that will cause the barrier to international trade. Okay, so that is why the non-tariff measures are very vague, are very unclear, and then because of this, they are not really studied well. They are always understudied. Okay, they are always understudied. Okay. They are always under study again, man. Okay. And how many types of non-tariff measure? I cannot answer right now. You're gonna see in the next slide. Okay. And are non-tariff measure critically challenging Cambodian export potential recently? Indeed. Okay. Even though we recently signed the bilateral free trade agreement with China on 5th October 2012, and then will come into force on 1st January 2022. Next month, I heard this afternoon the Ministry of Foreign Affairs just issued a new letter saying that the Cambodia-China bilateral FTA will be coming into force on the 1st January 2022. Just a reminder to the public that we are going to have the first bilateral FTA with China to be in place very soon. Okay, so a good news for the Cambodian government and for the Cambodian people indeed. However, this kind of FTA is not removing all barrier to the export and import between Cambodia and China. Why? Because most of FTA focus on what we call tariff liberalization, meaning that we ask the other party to provide some tariff concession by removing tariff rate, for example, from 20% to only 5 or 3%. It is, of course, called also free trade agreement, even though it's not 0%, but 1 to 2 to 3%, and then will be removed to 0% in the next 5 years, is also considered as a part of FTA. But when we talk about non-tariff measure, FTA cannot involve that much. Okay, because FTA only mostly involved with the liberalization of tariff. But when it comes to SPS, when it comes to rule of origin, when it comes to certain obligation regarding to technical standard, regarding the inspection, regarding to the inspection or import and export licensing requirement and other procedure, FTA cannot really solve much. Okay, that is why even those Cambodians, when having bilateral FTA with China in 20 that was signed on 5th October 2020, and the second one that was signed on 26th October 2021, just like last month with South Korea. We got 2 so far, and we just signed the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement (RCEP) on 15 November 2020. Okay, we got 3 so far. However, we still have a lot of challenges with regards to the non-tariff measure. Okay, so be clear. FTA mostly involve the reduction, removal, or to make it simple, liberalization of tariff, while a number of plots of non-tariff measure are mostly still untouched. Okay, and we need to have side protocol, perhaps to need some other following up regulation in order to remove the non-tariff measure year by year, decade by decade, for example. So again, Cambodia is still right now facing a non-tariff measure in its export potential. Okay, and how are non-tariff measures regulated? As I said, they might be in the forms of regulation, they might be in the forms of policy, some degree, they might be in the forms of new law, or sometimes they might be in the forms of just announcement, just proper. Okay, that will be imposing the new regulation, the new obligation for importer and exporter to perform before they can export or import certain goods between country and country. So this is how the non-tariff measures are regulated. Will there be a possibility that one day this barrier, non-tariff measure will be eliminated? No, from my personal opinion, there will be no possibility that one day the non-tariff measure will be eliminated from the world or international trade. Why? Because mostly developed states like the US, like Canada, New Zealand, Japan, or even Singapore in South Asia, they always use non-tariff measure as a defense, okay, for the international trade. They try to liberalize the tariff. For example, I will not take tariff on you, or I will not levy any duty on your good, okay, importing into my country. For example, EU, I will give you EBA scheme. However, your product can only enter my market if your product certified what we call rule of origin obligation, group origin requirement, for example. So this kind of requirement that are beyond tariff is causing the barrier to the trade or the export of developing country like Cambodia, who depend largely on export market. Okay, so again, even those we are right now having some effort, some negotiation, or we have some intensive effort or negotiation among members of the WTO, in the future there will be still no any possibility that the tariff measure will be completely removed from the international market, because states still view it as a very important way or defender, okay, to restrict the very extensive volume of import into it market. Okay. EU give EBA to Cambodia in exchange for some human right obligation. For example, if you go to Annex B of the Regulation 7978/2012 EU regulation, you will see that there are 15 underlying agreements, okay, that Cambodia must abide by before Cambodia can secure the renewal or the applications of what we call EBA scheme, everything but arms scheme here. So if we fail any obligation, for example, we fail to respect human right, to respect women right, to respect children right, to respect the political rights of people out there, they will use that as the basis to withdraw or to partially withdraw, suspend the EBA scheme from Cambodia. So we have to stay abided by the regulation that are imposed by them. So it's not that fair, but we have to do so because we need export market into EU. Okay, so here are just some notion that I want to give you a little background in order to ensure that when you go into the non-tariff measure lesson, you will not get lost, because it's quite complicated anyway, okay, not that easy as the tariff measure. Okay, so let's go with me right now. Are you fine, guys? Acceptable? Can we move on to the second slide? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Okay, what about the rest? Are you fine?
Yes, lecturer.
Okay, very good. So let me move on. Okay. Hopefully we're gonna have physical class very soon before I leave. Okay, Cambodia. Okay. Okay. Why are non-tariff measures understudied? Okay, as I said, as I give you one important question in the notion a moment ago. Why are non-tariff measures understudied? Because non-tariff measures first are not about something numerical, are not something that are number based or number index. Okay, but they are mostly about regulation. They are mostly about the procedural obligation that are merely in the form of paper, okay, not in the forms of number that we can just, okay, can I remove the tariff by from 15% to 5%? Okay, it's quite easy. Just see the number right there and then talk and then negotiate to remove the tariff, to reduce the tariff. But right here, it's not about the number that we can see, that we can touch, that we can know the level of reduction. Here is about regulation. Here is about policy. Here is about procedure that you want to remove. If you want to remove or if you want to change, amend something, you need to change it law. You need to amend the law. Okay? You need to eliminate that clause, that provision that you think are restricting international trade in the forms of non-tariff measure. Okay? So again, non-tariff measure is quite understudied because first, it is not about something numerical, not about something number based, but it is about something regulatory and procedural, that merely about the obligation with regards to the policy and regulation other than the number of tariff itself. Okay, and second one, because the non-tariff measure comprise of many technical measures other than tariff. Okay, so when you see the word technical measure, it's very hardly understandable for developing country officer like Cambodia, like Nepal, like Myanmar, like Laos, when we are very low educated in international trade law, when we are quite less expertise, okay, in the fields of international trade law. So when we see the measures that are in a way very technical, we cannot understand well. So not only us, but the other academic, okay, find the studies on international trade law, especially non-tariff measures, quite complicated. Okay, even let us assume that I assign you to undertake one important critical assignment on non-tariff measures. Can you explain what are the new non-tariff measures that have been imposed by the Cambodian government with regards to the import of fish, for example? So you need to say regulation, and how can you find regulation? At what ministry? At what that? Are they gonna be published online? So if they are not published online, can you study it? Indeed, you cannot. Okay. So when again, it's about something very technical. It's about something very hardly understandable. So that's why the non-tariff measure have been the very understudied subject so far. So unlike tariff, quite easy, but you know about a form of tariff, for example, specific, max, compound, technical, you can actually understand the concepts of tariff itself, and then you can study well. But here, something very technical. Okay, so you cannot just purely see on your own eye. Okay, on your own eye. Okay. Third reason why the non-tariff measures are still understudied so far, because it involves many regulatory review and study. It means that one technical measure cannot be seen alone. It must be undergoing a lot of technical review. For example, you need to see one. You need to have one expert. You have to need 2 or 3 experts to depict, to explain what this regulation is about actually, again, because some law, some legal terminology seems to be very ambiguous, very vague, that you need a lot of review, okay, to understand what important non-tariff measure alone. So I think not quite easy like the tariff measure, because here we need to undergo a number of regulatory review and studies. Okay, and what else? Because the country are not willing to adapt, meaning that even though the member of the WTO are required by the WTO regulation to publish any law regulation, still, okay, a lot of members are not willing to adapt their policy and regulation with regards to the non-tariff measure. Okay, so it means that when you are the academic, you are the researcher, you want to conduct a very serious and critical study on the non-tariff measure. How can you do when you cannot get the sufficient data provided by the government, especially with regards to their new policy, new regulation? Because some government, for example, some government during the COVID-19 decided not to notify to the WTO regarding their new restrictive measure of export restriction. For example, they do not want to export PPE, but personal PPE, personal and protective equipment for the medical stuff to use during the cure of the COVID-19 patient. So when they want to restrict that, they do not intend to notify to the WTO about the measure, but they just implement right away, and then the rest of the world cannot get a product from that country because of the export restricting measure by that country. For example, in EU, as I said, in last 2 or 3 weeks, African country or ASEAN country already depend largely on the import of mass medical stuff from the EU market. But during the COVID-19 pandemic surge, especially in the mid-2020, EU decided to block its export of PPE and other medical equipment to the rest of the world. And who will be in danger from this blockade of the market export from EU? The African state and Cambodian and ASEAN state, who already depend on the imports of this kind of product for the medical service in Cambodia, in African state. That is why our Prime Minister decided to instantly install the factory that we use Fetal mask, and then we can right now generate, create thousands of masks each day, and then we can even change our status from the one that received the mask during the COVID-19 to the one that provided mask to the rest of the world during the COVID-19. So I think I remember the word from the old saying, which reads that when you do not face any obstacle, you will be enjoying the freestyle life. Okay, but when you face any difficulty in life, you will start to innovate. You will compel yourself to do something that you have never done before, and that is what Cambodia is doing right now. We're right now installing a lot of companies that produce medical stuff and also medical masks in order to provide enough supply for medical people, medical workers, to provide the enough treatment for our Cambodian patient of COVID-19. Okay, so again, countries are not willing to adapt. Okay, the measure with regards to the non-tariff measure. Okay, and what else? Because the measurements are not purely or not perfectly accurate. Okay, as I said, when we talk about tariff, it's quite obvious. If 20%, it is of course 20%. If 19%, it is of course 19%. We can see right here. We can negotiate, we can reuse by looking at a number as a reference. But here, how can you rely that? How can you measure that one law and one regulation in what certain extent that impose the barrier to international trade? You have no measurement. Okay, even though you figure out, it is not accurate. It is not number based. It is not numerical that you can see right there. But here it's about statistic. It's about the regulation. For example, let me ask you. Can you tell me how much percentage that the Cambodian new law on the what we call ច្បាប់ស្តីពីការបិទខ្ទប់បណ្ដោះអាសន្ននេះច្បាប់ដែលទើបតែបង្កើតដោយក្រសួងយុទ្ធភ័ពឯមុនដែលសម្រាប់ឲ្យបង្កើតដើម្បីការពារ COVID ក្នុងករណីបណ្ដោះមានករណីគ្រោះអាសន្ននេះគឺយើងអាចបិទប្រទេស so if you are the human right study a researcher, you will ask, can anybody tell me in what extent, to what extent, in what degree, okay, in what percentage that the new law enacted by the government will restrict your right, especially the right to walk or right to move, right to have freedom, for example. So how can you answer? I think it's gonna restrict my right by 70%. Is this accurate to say so? 70%? In what way that you can measure this number out? Okay, so it's very contingent to confusion. Okay, that is why the non-tariff measures are quite understudied, because the measurement of the measure effect or the measure result on the restriction to international trade are not perfectly accurate. Okay, are not numerical, are not number based, because they are purely about assessment, about the opinion with regards to the interpretation of law and policy and regulation that are considered as the non-tariff measure. Okay, what else? Why non-tariff measures are understudied? Because non-tariff measures are not static, are not fixed, meaning that they are always updated depending on the new innovation of the government. For example, right now the government imposed certain level of non-tariff measures out there, but suddenly the government found that we think we should create new policy that will impose more barrier to the import of fish, the import of beef, the import of other sensitive goods that will impact our own domestic user. So we decided to create new regulation. So when you are the researcher, you want to study the non-tariff measure of Cambodia. Previously, you got only 10 measures. But right now, the Cambodian government decided to create 3 or 4 more measures that are just enacted yesterday or something. So 3 more measures and you just cover 10 measures so far that existed so far. And the 3 new measures that are newly established, newly designed by the government are not covered by your study. That is why you have to follow up every day? No, you cannot do so. You're gonna consume so much resource in your research and your study. That is why just keep it still and then assume that non-tariff measure is always understudied, because the government always have the new design of the measure depending on the real circumstances, depending on the real situation when they face. Okay, okay. What else? Because the non-tariff measure is not purely imposed by state. Okay, again, guy, when you talk about tariff measure, who is the sole authority that imposed at the border? Anybody can tell me? Who is the sole authority, the competent authority that imposed tariff measure at the border of Cambodia and the rest of the world? Anybody can tell me? Who? Which authority of Cambodia? Which authority of Cambodia that imposed the custom duty or the tariff on goods along the border?
Custom and excise.
Exactly, Custom and Excise Officer, or we call General Department of Custom and Excise of Cambodia, under the purview of Ministry of Economy and Finance. Okay, it is of course a state authority, but non-tariff measures here are not only imposed by state, but it can also be imposed by those private companies that are in alignment with state, or they are acting separately from state, but they are allowed by state. Okay, because state fail to provide this kind of service. Okay, for the import of certain goods. For example, Cambodian government have no any laboratory equipment to inspect, okay, the SPS, sanitary and fetal sanitary, on the good imported from India. So how can we do? Okay, do we need to wait to have more income, and then we will purchase a lot of advanced technology or equipment to put at the border? It's very time consuming to wait for that. So why don't we just hire the company that are specialized in having technology to inspect the SPS measure on the good imported into Cambodia? So the government hire, okay, the private company, private entity to station at the border and then inspect, okay, the good for the, okay, what we call SPS, or the health of the good. For example, the health of the product. For example, if we import plant or if we import animal, we need the very technical or highly advanced, okay, laboratory equipment provided by the private sector to do, because the government or the state sector has no this kind of advanced technology. So this non-tariff measure beyond the tariff alone is not only performed by state. Okay, what else? For example, when you export, let's say that I'm right now the Thai trader. So when I export my good to Thailand, to Cambodia, but I want to dispatch my good to my final destination, to my end user of my good in Cambodia. Okay, so if I right now make my good reach the border between Cambodia and Thailand, but I want to transport my good from Cambodia border with Thailand to the internal distributor or internal destination, okay, in Cambodia, because they are the end user of my good. But I have no transportation mean, I have no logistic support, and the government of Cambodia cannot provide this kind of service. They only open the markets for you, but it is your own obligation to find logistic support, to find transportation mean to deport, to transport your good from the border to the final destination across Cambodia. So how can you do right here? It is also one of the non-tariff measures, because it caused the barrier to your trade, which is beyond tariff. Okay, and what else? And who will come to perform the service for you? Logistic company, for example, DHL, okay, Amazing Logistic, okay, the IFDL, for example, oh, not the IWL, okay, what else? Or other logistic company that are in the Association of Logistics of Cambodia, let's say that. So here you can see, not only state alone that impose non-tariff measure, but the non-state actor, I mean the private company or MNC, multinational corporation, can also involve in the impositions of non-tariff measure. Okay, that is why when you want to study the non-tariff measure, you need to also get the data from the state and the data from many companies that provide this kind of service with regards to the facilitation of non-tariff measures. So you have to contact with all of them. So is it easy? Not that easy. That is why they keep it understudied so far. And what else? Non-tariff measure again is not about number. So when it is not about number, it is about the description by the authority. So when we talk about description, it is about the law. It's about the regulation that we cannot see, that we cannot measure out. So we have no transparency. Okay, for example, before you can export, before you can import your product to Cambodia, you need to hire me, okay, to provide you some inspection service first, whether your good certify the standard requirement or not. Okay, so this kind of obligation that you need to pay for them will also incur in some kind of bribery, because sometimes you want your products to be very fast screened, okay, not to be stuck there and then you have to wait for 10 or 7 or 10 days. So you decided to spend more money under the table, to make it simple, to spend more money under the table, or to bribe the officer to provide you a very as fast as procedure possible for you, in order to allow you to export the good into Cambodia very fast. Okay, to certify your speed of good delivery into Cambodia. So this kind of non-tariff measure is actually a very beautiful, a very safe umbrella for the corrupt officer who can actually enrich themselves by getting a bribery from the trader who want to have their product going past the non-tariff measure quickly. Okay, so I think these are the enough reason to know why the non-tariff measures are quite understudied so far. Okay, I think you are well, okay, not far behind my explanation, because I try to make a detail and then with example as well. Don't worry, we're gonna see more of this kind in the next slide. So I don't ask you whether you got or not, because it's gonna be very time consuming. Okay, move on. And if you have any question, feel free to interrupt me. Okay, do not just say, teacher, just go. I don't care. No, interrupt me anytime you want to. So I will not go alone. Okay.
Teacher.
Come on.
So from what you said, NTM could be the cause of corruption too.
Yes, indeed. Yes. If we talk about tariff, it is very easy. If you need to pay 15% that are sold in the schedule of concession of Cambodia, the custom officer are required to take at this certain percentage. You must pay at the level. Okay? You cannot pay higher than that, or you cannot pay below than that, because it is the boundary rate that they apply, and or it is the applied tariff rate that they apply. Okay, but in a non-tariff measure, okay, for example, inspection, for example, examination of ISPS, okay, your mango is bacteria free. Okay, I mean your mango has no any bacterial substance at all. But when you export to a very poor country, you know, when we talk about poor country, we refer to the country that has a lot of corrupt officer, and then they have no any advanced technology to screen your product. But when you put into their laboratory equipment tool, they will say that your mango has 30% of the chemical substance. So you need to have your mango clean at the border for 10 days, for example, to have the bacteria wipe out from the mango. Let's say that. So can you wait for 10 days, okay, for your mango to be clean from the bacteria? Okay, so you might, okay, sir, can you make it as fast as possible for me to have my mango reach its final destination in your country, because my mango cannot be put at the border for so long, more than 2 days, because it's gonna be decay, it's gonna be perish. Okay, so can you help me a little bit by just fill out the document for me and then declare that it is clean, it has no bacteria, and then I can actually export freely, export smoothly into your country. So the officer said, okay, I can do so for you, but give me $1,000 per container, let's say that. So you can see the bribery is on the surface. Okay? And I don't refer to Cambodia, but you can imagine by yourself why some are so rich. Okay, make it simple, right? Just between you and I, so do not get it to somewhere else, because I'm afraid that I'm gonna be in danger from my word. But as I said, it is not about the case of Cambodia. But you can imagine by yourself why they are so rich. Okay, simple. Okay. What is the definition of non-tariff measure? As I said, we have no law of WTO that define the word non-tariff measure. So according to the literature review or according to the scholarly writing, the publication by the legal expert in international trade law, non-tariff measures are defined as following. For example, by Santana and Ann Lee in 2012, they say that non-tariff measures refer to the government impose or sponsor sanction or omission that act as a prohibition or restriction on trade other than ordinary custom duty, other duty and charge on import and export. Okay? It means that beyond custom duty, beyond other duty, beyond charge on import and export, all the government sponsor or impose sanction or omission, okay, or any obstruction, okay, that act as the prohibition or restriction on international trade is indeed the non-tariff measure. Okay, so again, it is the definition by the legal expert in international trade law, Santana Rajan and Ann Lee, 2012. Okay, I used to read the book so far, and we also got a definition by the United Nations Committee for the United Nations Conference on the Trade and Development. We call normally as the UN CONTAT, UN CITAT. They define the word non-tariff measure as the measure that include all policy related trade costs incurred from the production to the final consumer with the exclusion of tariff. Okay, so they always make it clear that we do not include tariff in the non-tariff measure. But for the UN CITAT here, they refer non-tariff measure to policy-related trade costs, okay, that incur as the barrier to international trade from the stage of production to the final consumer stage. Okay, so it's quite easy to understand by looking at the definition by Santana and Ann and also UN CITAT. But there are also more. For example, there is a reminder to people who study international trade, especially non-tariff measure, that do not be confused between non-tariff measure and non-tariff barrier. Okay, again, even I myself, when I was very immature in international trade law, I also got confused between non-tariff measure and non-tariff barrier, because barrier is indeed a measure is indeed a barrier. However, under the ambit of international trade law, non-tariff measure are the measure that cover barrier. Okay, because some measures are not named as the barrier. Okay, are not named as the barrier, but the way that they are performed cause the obstacle to international trade. Okay, cause the obstacle to international trade unknowingly. That is why non-tariff measure is the umbrella of non-tariff barrier. So a lot of non-tariff barrier are under the purview of non-tariff measure. So non-tariff measure might be kind of, yeah, quite simple. It will not cause any obstacle to international trade, but when you apply that measure, it's actually a barrier to international trade. It's actually the hindrance, the obstacle to the flows of import and export of goods and service, for example. So again, do not be confused. Non-tariff measure is the umbrella of a lot of non-tariff barrier, NTB and NTM. Okay. So when you got to take the examination into my ministry or to Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and then they ask you the question, is non-tariff barrier the same as non-tariff measure? Just click no. Okay. And then if they explain to you, if they ask you to explain, just say that non-tariff measure are all the measures, okay, that go beyond a barrier. But when we implement right away, they of course cause the barrier to international trade. So non-tariff barrier are the elements or are the subform of the non-tariff measure. Okay, non-tariff measure. Non-tariff measure can be both trade related, for example, quota. I think you know well about the word quota. I'm going to explain in the next slide. Subsidy, you know well about the word subsidy. We refer to the word overtonton between or by the government to the private company with regards to the financial contribution. Okay, safeguard measure and also export restriction. And the other forms of NTM is non-trade, for example, technical measure and SPIs. It is not about the trade issue, but it is about the technical standard. It is about the what else? About the health of the good, health of plant, health of animal. Okay, that are believed that are considered as good. Okay, so they are not trade related, but they cause the condition for importer and exporter to pass first before they can export and import the product. Okay, so they are not related to trade, but they had a condition to trade. Okay, they had a condition to trade. Before trading, you have to go through SPS. You have to go through the technical measure screening first, for example. Non-tariff measure can also be classified as botanical and non-technical. So that go with me. What does it mean by the botanical non-tariff measure and non-technical non-tariff measure? Here are the two important forms of the non-tariff measure. The first one is technical, second one is non-technical. Okay. When we talk about a technical measure, it's quite obvious that we need to apply, we need to utilize the very scientific laboratory equipment, okay, to see, okay, the existence of the measure. Okay. For example, the first one of the technical non-tariff measure is the sanitary and fetal sanitary. In Khmer, Anamai, hai nang Phutukim Anamai. It falls under the purview of Ministry of Forestry and Fishery of Cambodia. Okay. SPS here is very yes. Come on.
Non-technical in Khmer again, please.
Non-technical គឺមិនបច្ចេកទេស okay. Technical គឺបច្ចេក yeah, you mean which word?
The one that you said previously.
Sanitary and phytosanitary.
Yes.
Yeah, sanitary in Khmer mean anamai. Sanitation, you know the word sanitation. For example, the government is decided to improve the level of sanitation of Cambodian people in order to increase their livelihood or living standard, for example. So sanitary mean anamai, and phytosanitary mean, what is phytosanitary mean? Phutukim anamai. So what is the difference between sanitary and phytosanitary? Again, it falls under the purview or the ambit of the Ministry of Forestry and Fishery of Cambodia. Sanitary refer to the health of animal. Okay, health of animal. We call it sanitary. Sanitation of the animal. Phytosanitary is the health of the plant. For example, you want to import sakura from Japan. Okay, so before you can import from the border between Cambodia and Thailand, because you cannot import sakura from Japan directly to Cambodia because we have no border with Japan. So we need to use Thailand as the transit for Cambodia and Japan. So when you import sakura from Japan, when the sakura arrive at the border between Cambodia and Thailand, the sakura will be undergoing the screening, the SPS examination. They will check whether sakura tree, sakura plant has enough or acceptable standard of phytosanitary level or not. Okay. So for example, if the sakura has no any chemical substance that will endanger the surrounding plant that will be grown along the sakura tree, it's fine. It will be acceptable. It will be allowed to be imported into Cambodia. But if they realize that the sakura has a lot of insect, okay, and the insect will actually cause danger to the surrounding plant around sakura tree when they are grown in Cambodia, they will reject the import of the sakura into Cambodia. So phytosanitary is the sanitation of the goat in the form of plant. Okay, while sanitary we refer to the goat of the health of the sanitation or the health of the goat in the forms of animal. For example, if you want to import fish, if you want to import buffalo, if you want to import Australian cow to Cambodia, you will need to undergo the screening, the examination of sanitary measure by the Ministry of Forest and Fishery first, okay, before you can be allowed to import such animal into Cambodia. Okay, I want to tell you recently that when we try to limit the import of the fish from Vietnam to Cambodia, because as I said, I told you in the beginning that last 4 or 5 months we got a lot of complaints from the Cambodian local fish producer, because they found that the influx or the very flood of what we call import of fish from Vietnam really caused the danger, really caused the difficulty or serious injury to the local fish producer in Cambodia. Because when we import a lot of fish from Vietnam, our local fish producer, a rasher, cannot find the Cambodian market, the local market, to supply their fish. Okay, because the Cambodian people rely entirely on the affordable price fish, okay, from Vietnam. that are imported by a lot of tycoon in Cambodia. A tycoon means rich people, Oknya, for example. So the Cambodian local producer of fish form the association and then file a complaint to the Ministry of Economy and Finance of Cambodia, chaired by Deputy Prime Minister, and also to the Ministry of Forestry and Fishery of Cambodia. And then they jointly proposed to the government of Cambodia, Prime Minister Hun Sen, and then they provide one resolution to the issue by limiting the import of fish from Vietnam to only 50% for domestic supply in Cambodia, while the rest 50% for domestic supply in Cambodia of fish must be from the local producer of fish. They make it equal 50 by 50. Okay, so this resolution indeed satisfy the Cambodian people. Okay, because they will be given 50% of market space, okay, to supply their fish in Cambodia. So they do not need to compete much with the foreign fish, especially the fish from Vietnam. But rich people, tycoon in Cambodia, who are very rich from earning the import of fish from Vietnam into Cambodia to supply more than thousands of tons, okay, into Cambodian market, they complain as well. They said that it is not fair for them because they have been traditionally relying on the import of fish from Vietnam to Cambodia, and they have already put the purchase order to the Cambodian, to the Vietnamese fish producer that will be coming into Cambodia by the next 3 weeks. And then right now the government imposed a new resolution that will limit the import of fish by only 50%, but the rest 50% will be supplied by the Cambodian local producer of fish. It's not ready for them. They are not ready. So they decided to also file a counter complaint to the Prime Minister and also to the Ministry of Economy and Finance and to Ministry of Commerce and Ministry of Fishery and Forest and Fishery. Okay, and what happened? We conducted many rounds of meeting, and then we try to find way to certify our local farmer, our local fish producer, and then we do not want to certify a few rich tycoon, a few rich people. So we still insist on limiting the import of fish from Vietnam to Cambodia. And you know what did the tycoon say? They say that if you still apply the policy that restrict the import of fish from Vietnam, we will ask Vietnam government to file complaint against you. You know, they even said that we will ask the Vietnam government, not ask, but they will find way to allow the government of Vietnam to find resolution by even serious taking an illegal action against Cambodia. Okay, and then our government decided to find the reason, the legal reason why we should. What are the reasons that we can use in order to defend our position of limiting the import of fish? And then some said that I think you should raise the sanitary measure, okay, of the fish from Vietnam, saying that Vietnamese fish are chemical substance, are having chemical substance. Vietnamese fish are not naturally be used or raised. But if you do so, the Vietnamese government will challenge your position, will challenge your argument, because they will ask you to examine the sanitary measure on fish. And then if you found there is no any sanitary issue, okay, on the fish from Vietnam, you will be facing legal complaint from Vietnam. So that is the very real case, okay, that we apply sanitary measure in order to limit the import of fish from Vietnam. But we decided to withdraw this measure because it is not scientific enough, because the fish from Vietnam has no any, you know, existence of chemical substance as we believe. Okay, so we decided to withdraw this position in defense of our legal action in case that they file complaint against us. So we try to find more way. I'm going to explain to you what are the very unique way that the Cambodian government resort to, that we finally won the case, that we finally could limit the import of fish from Vietnam without any legal complaint from Vietnam. So I'm going to explain you in the next slide. Don't worry, that case will be stand still. Okay, but that is the real case of applying SPS. Okay, and for the plan, we got Sakura from Japan. Okay, from Japan. Yeah. Besides sanitary and fetal sanitary anamai and putugim anamai that are imposed on meat, on animal, on plant, we also have what we call technical barrier to trade. Okay, that is also another technical non-tariff measure. Okay, technical barrier to trade refers to the technical standard that will be required, okay, for the exporting country to perform, okay, whether the goods are in the right standard or not. Okay, for example, if you want to export soap, okay, you know, soap means a bull. Let me recall a case. Okay, when I was a guest speaker for my ministry, despite to the mission in Pantiminjay, okay. And during my presentation and after my presentation, I got a lot of questions from exporter of a product to Canada, because my topic that time was about promoting the Cambodian export to Canada market. Because again, as you might realize that Canada is the third largest market for Cambodia after the EU. The US ranked number 2 or ranked number 3 for our export destination, but EU ranked number 1 and Canada ranked number 2. So during my workshop, during my presentation there, I also got some questions. Why? They said that, sir, I have a lot of issue regarding my export to foreign market, because my shop here is not accepted by the importing country because of lacking technical standard. And then I asked them, what is the technical standard that you encounter? And then they said that my shop has only the shop, okay, but we have no packaging, we have no any plastic package, okay, to make it standardized, to make it internationally recognized, to make it safe, okay, for the consumer in Canada. And then my suggestion is that we cannot challenge Canada for limiting the import of soap from Cambodia, because they indeed apply the technical barrier to trade by imposing the requirement on technical standard on the product before entering the market, because they believe that if the product are not standardized enough, if the product are not internationally recognized enough, the product will cause any health hazard or health disaster on the end consumer in Canada. So that is the logic that they have to apply TBT against our product. And the best way that you can do is to create or to innovate, okay, your packaging. Okay, for example, you put very well designed and also very clean plastic package with the ISO code, with the industrial code. We got something like many streak on a small table of streak line. Okay, I think you know quite well about that. If you go to check the product package, you will see a white box with many streak. Anybody recognize that? With many lines, streak, and then we got a number underneath. You recognize that, guys? Anybody used to notice that?
Is it barcode?
The barcode.
Yeah. Okay. The barcode to represent where is the good from, okay, and also to represent the industrial recognition, okay, from the exporting country as well. Okay, so we need to have this kind of technical standard, okay, before we can export our product to Canada, and then they will accept for sure, because they only impose technical standard but not tariff, because Canada provides GSP to Cambodia by allowing the Cambodian people to export duty-free, quota-free to Canada, but we still face technical barrier. But as I heard, when I finished my workshop and then I went straightly to UK for my study, and then when I came back, I got the good news from my DDG saying that the women that work on the productions of soap in Pantiminjay right now can secure very smooth export into Canadian market. And then I found that the photo that he shows to me gave me the info that the soap of those women have been right now very well packaged, and also make it very innovative. That look very user friendly. Okay? So I'm really excited that I could see they can export to Canadian market. You can imagine how a shop, okay, from a very developing country in like Cambodia can export to very well or advanced country like Canada. So I think it is a good price, okay, for our Cambodian producer, even though it is not in a large scale, but at least, okay, it starts from the small scratch, and then it will be moving higher and higher in the future. So it's the good sign, positive sign that we are right now undertaking. Okay, again, that is the technical standard. Okay, it is not that, but there are many more aspects of technical barrier to international trade. So I cannot specify, but it's in one line here. Okay, the third technical non-tariff measure is the pre-shipment inspection and other formality. For example, before you can export, the importing country will require you to have pre-inspection by your own authority first, meaning that before you can ship your product to my country, you need to undergo your inspection, okay, in your country, and then get the certificate for my authority to check whether your goods are actually qualified or not, okay. So this kind of pre-shipment, the inspection before shipping, is also another technical non-tariff measure that cause the barrier to the import and export of goods, okay. Another formality. What do you mean by the word formality? Formality mean in Khmer Tamrung saying it means that some other formal but some other, for example, before you can export your product to Cambodia, you must fill the CO, certificate of origin, in form A, in form D. Okay, you need to have some photo attached on the paper, on the documentation package. Okay, you need to have signature in this form and format. Okay? So this kind of very technical formality can also cause the delay, okay, to the process of import and export of goods and services. Okay, so these are called the technical non-tariff measures that are imposed at the border by the importing authority in order to restrict the import of goods and services from the foreign countries. And Cambodia can also do the same, but make sure that when you do it, you have scientific evidence to support your argument. But can we have, for example, is Cambodia right now capable enough of having or utilizing what we call scientific technology, for example, to check the SPS of the good? Are we right now, advanced enough to apply this kind of technological device, okay, to screen the quality, to screen the standard of the good from advanced country like the US? Okay, the US can of course impose on us because of their very given advanced technology, but like Cambodia, can we? I think it's very hard and very limited for Cambodia. So again, that's why non-tariff measures are mostly found applied by the developed country other than developing country because of the comparative advantage of the technology of developed country, okay, against the developing country, okay. And as we can see, even Cambodia already rely on the import of new technology from the foreign country like the US, like Canada, okay, like Japan, okay. We cannot be used by ourselves. We could be used the airplane, for example. I got a news saying that, wow, congratulate, Cambodian man can be used the first airplane in Cambodia. And then when I click on the news, I found that the plane is standstill. Anybody used to read that news? The plane is standstill, okay. The airplane, the first Cambodian man that they use it. Then the title of that news saying that, wow, the biggest pride, the Cambodian man is the first Cambodian person that could produce an airplane in Cambodia. And then when we check it out, we found that the airplane is under construction and it is actually made from wood and then stand still for the restaurant purpose, for example. Anybody used to come across this news, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's very ridiculous, but it happened for real in Cambodia, and the news in Cambodia is very devastating. Like they always put the very bad click title and then bad click title. So when we read the news, when we read the title, we feel so much attracted, and then we decided to at least give a single click in order to read the news, and then they said that nothing. And then when you read the content of the news, nothing. For example, Pixel Pierce said that next year she will. And then blah, 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 blah. And then, oh my God, I want to know what is Pixel doing so far. And then when we check it out, Pixel said that next year she will do something that will add more value to her career. What is the sense of the news, right? So it's very nonsense in Cambodia. Okay, let's come back to our lesson, right? Just something funny that happened for them in Cambodia. Okay, besides technical non-tariff measure, we also got the non-tariff. Yes?
One question: is there any case where scientific evidence have been challenged?
I'm not. Okay. Anybody used to hear the case of meal? I think I used to tell your class maybe. Anybody used to hear the case of meal?
Do kids powdered milk like you?
Yeah, I talked last time. We use our laboratory equipment by the General Department of Inspection and Fraud Repression fraud repression of Cambodia. It was formerly known as the gun control, but right now it has been dissolved and then changed to new name. And then we use because we got so many complaints from the parents of the children who got suffer in hell, because of using the I forgot the name of that powder mill, but because of using that meal, some of them face a lot of what we call a misfunction of the brain, misfunctions of the head, for example, and the physical appearance of the head looks very weird from the normal person. So they decided to file complaint, jointly file collectively file complaint against that company to the government of Cambodia. And then we got attorney, a lawyer that represented the government, and that the company, okay, representative that also come along with the lawyer, challenge us, okay, ask us, what is your scientific evidence to support that, to claim that, to support the argument by the parent that the meal has excessive chemical substance, that excessive chemical substance that cause the health issue to the children that drink them. And then we issue one certificate that has been used by our laboratory equipment, mobilized under our Ministry of Commerce. And then the company, because the company got the license from Singapore, the company, the meals of the company sold in Cambodia is used in Singapore. So they bring the certificate sold by or attached it by our government to the Singaporean company, and then Singaporean company challenge, okay, our evidence, saying that our laboratory device that examine the chemical substance of the meal is not scientific, it's not reliable. So they want us to have another examination of the chemical substance in the meal in Singapore, not in Cambodia. Okay. And then we defended that during the meeting I was also joining. We defended that our laboratory equipment was indeed recognized by the Singaporean authority already. We already got certified also by the World Health Organization and the World Standard Organization. So why you did not recognize, okay, the quality of the examinations of the chemical substance by our laboratory equipment? And then when the company representative, company lawyer found the recognition, okay, of our equipment by the international community, even by the Singaporean government back then in 2016 or something, they remain speechless. Okay, they remain speechless. Okay, and they later on settle by providing some compensation and also recalling the collection of all the meal that have been dispatched in Cambodia back to stock, okay, in order to avoid future consequences on the health issue of the children. So that is one specific case that the scientific measure, okay, scientific evidence has been challenged by the foreign company, because it is indeed, even though it's between the meal company in Cambodia and government Cambodia, but the meal company is actually originated in Singapore. So it caused international trade between the Cambodian government with regards to the meal, that meal alone. And that meal has been advertised by using a lot of, well-known celebrity, like I don't want to mention, but you can imagine, you can check it out. So that is one specific case with regards to, but I cannot find an example with regards to the okay, one case, okay, COVID-19 beef from India. Okay, we decided to destroy 3 containers of beef from India in the last 4 or 3 months. Okay, after we found that a very long list of variants of COVID-19 were found infecting the beef contained in the container from India into Cambodia. And then we decided to destroy 3 containers of beef and then block the imports of more beef from India during this very surge of COVID-19 pandemic new variant. And then Indian embassy in Cambodia decided to notify to Indian government, and then Indian government sent a letter to my ministry saying that we need you to examine the case of the beef once again, because India found that before the beef were released from India, before the beef was released from India, Indian government already underwent what we call the very scientific examination of the beef, whether the beef contain any significant volume or significant existence of the COVID-19 new variant or not. Okay, and then Indian challenge us, and then we Ministry of Commerce, Ministry of Health, and also Ministry of Fishery and Forestry of Cambodia jointly work together, and then we try to defend our position by claiming that our laboratory equipment has been recognized by the WHO. for its accuracy of detecting the COVID-19 pandemic on the beep, which is also part of sanitary measure. Okay. And after that, when we convince the Indian counterpart that we got very scientific and internationally recognized scientific evidence to defensible position of limiting or blocking the import of mobile from India to Cambodia during the COVID-19 surge, India decided to withdraw its position, and then we will no longer challenge your position, and then wait until the COVID-19 situation in India has been calming down, so we will be resuming our trade with regards to beef. Okay, so this is one important case with regard to the sanitary measure that we found the COVID-19 variant infected on the Indian beef imported into Cambodia. So you got a point, guys? Fine. Okay. There might be more, but I don't know well because it under the ambit of the Ministry of Forestry.
Regarding
Yes.
to the ingredients.
Hmm?
So regarding
what?
to the ingredient when we import. I'm sorry, I think my internet is really slow.
Yeah. Come on.
Yeah. So is it only apply in like when we import for a country, or is it apply like locally too?
Apply local too. Sorry, maybe because of the poor internet connection right there. That's why I cannot hear you well. Very disconnected. Can you try once again your question?
I will ask again. So
Okay,
regarding to the ingredient checkings on each product, is it like when we import the product in, or is it also apply to local company that produce their product and they want to launch it to the public to use too?
Okay. We have two-track examination. Okay. In the case of ingredient, in the case of food, for example, we always need the certificate of certificate of examination by the local authority in the exporting country, in the producing country. Okay. SPS protocol. SPS protocol means that if you don't have any agreement to have the one side or single undertaking of examination, you will undergo two examination of the SPS on the ingredient of good, for example. So, for example, in the case of Cambodian China, right now we haven't got any agreement on single undertaking of sanitary or fetal sanitary examination. So we need to undergo two stages of examination. The first stage from China authority. China authority will examine the SPS level or standard of their product before exporting to Cambodia. And then if they found that there is no any chemical substance in the ingredient of golden item, they will issue one certificate declaring that the product is bacteria free, the product is the virus free, and then they can actually use this certificate to prove our Cambodian authority that the product that we are exporting to the country very soon is already declared virus free, bacteria free. But in that case, even though you got the declaration certificate from the Chinese authority, you also need to undergo another stage of SPS screening by the Cambodian authority. Okay, that is why right now the Cambodian and Chinese government are signing what we call protocol on SPS. Okay, we are doing just like last week. We are negotiating on the protocol on a side protocol on SPS by having only one single examination from Cambodia or from China. If we export from Cambodia to China, we need to only go through one SPS examination in Cambodia. But that SPS examination must be already recognized by the Chinese regarding the accuracy of detecting COVID or detecting the virus or bacteria. Okay, so if both parties agreed to have only one single undertaking of SPS examination, you only need one certificate from Cambodia before exporting to China. Or if you want to import from China to Cambodia, you only need to get one certificate of declaration of SPS, okay, from China, and then you can export to Cambodia without going through another health examination or SPS examination by the Cambodian authority, because we already signed what we call single SPS examination agreement or protocol on SPS. Okay, so no need to undergo two-stage or double examination of SPS measure. Okay, So it depends on your agreement. Okay? It depends on your agreement. But between Cambodia and China so far, we haven't got one. And also between India and Cambodia, we also haven't got one. That is why we need to undertake 2 examinations of ISPS. Okay, 2 examinations of ISPS. So if you agree to use only one, that one must also be recognized by your party that joined the protocol with you. For example, Cambodia and China. Cambodia recognize the accuracy of ISPS measure in China, and China also needs to recognize the accuracy of the ISPS equipment or examination tool in Cambodia. So we don't need to go through examination of ISPS again in China when Cambodia export to China, or China does not need to go through another ISPS examination by the Cambodian authority when Chinese people export goods into Cambodia. You got a point? All right. So it depends.
Yes,
Yeah, it depends on the agreement. Okay, and you ask a very right question because Cambodia and China are doing this kind of protocol right now. In addition to our upcoming into force of the what we call CCFTA, Cambodia-China Free Trade Agreement, that will be coming in force in on 1st January 2024, 2012. Okay, so 2022. I mean, sorry. Okay. So these are the 3 forms. Not only that, but there are more. But I want to mention only 3 important here that are called technical non-tariff measure. However, there are many other non-technical non-tariff measure. We call non-technical non-tariff measure, NTM. Okay, NTM. What are they? They are refers to the measure that are contingent to trade protection. Okay, for example, some new law, some regulation are when you see it, when you read it, it's very simple. It's very nothing to hinder to international trade. But when you apply it right away, it's very on the surface. I don't know what example is best applied, but you can imagine some regulation are very the title is quite easy, and your sense of content, your sense of definition of that agreement, your sense of substance of that agreement is that it's quite easy, it's quite implementable. But when you implement it right away, you find that the measure in the regulation are very contingent to restricting trade. Okay, for example, before in the agreement they said that in the regulation they said before Cambodian government can import any good from South Korea, the Cambodian government will need to approach the relevant technical expert in order to check the formality of product from South Korea. You can see the word check formality. It's quite easy. Just come in and be checked. Nothing restrictive. Okay? But when you apply it right away, apply it in reality, all Korean products that are coming into Cambodia will be blocked there, because we found that a lot of formality procedure, a lot of formality applications that are mentioned in the agreement find that South Korean product fail to reach some required formality. So again, on the surface, the agreement is quite easily read. Okay, it's very implementable, it's very understandable, but when you apply it right away, it is obviously a restriction to international trade, the flow of goods and service, okay, between import and export. So again, we don't put it trade protective measure, but we put it contingent trade protective measure, meaning that the measures are quite simple, but it's very contingent. Okay, when we apply it right away, it's very contingent. It's very related to the protection of trade. Okay, protection of trade of the importing countries. Okay, so it is not technical. Again, it is non-technical because it's very easy, but it's contingent. Okay, it's very related. It has the trade protective measure disguised in the regulation. Okay, camouflage គឺលាក់បាំងនៅក្នុងនេះគេថា disguise គឺមានន័យថាយើងមើលទៅអត់មានអីទេប៉ុន្តែដល់ពេលយើងអនុវត្តជាក់ស្ដែងសុទ្ធតែ measure នៅក្នុងហ្នឹង and I want to tell you one thing, we are always careful when we negotiate with Vietnam. Why? Vietnam is so smart. I think some of you might have not yet heard about my story that when I in early 2019, I was joining a delegation led by some like Homes came to Hanoi for 3 days, and we joined trade negotiation, not trade negotiation, but negotiation on border trade agreement between Cambodian and Vietnam. Okay, you know what happened? The prime minister between the deputy prime minister between the two countries only joined the one day event that we signed the agreement. But before the signing ceremony, the day of signing ceremony, both technical party of both party, Cambodian Vietnam, undertook a number of negotiations at technical working level, working group level. And we, for example, technical expert of Cambodia, technical expert of Vietnam, talk behind the scene, talk in the working group level, talk in the meeting on this day, on that day, like around 1 year, for example, before coming to the final ceremony, signing ceremony event on that day in 2019. You know what happened? Vietnam is so smart. Vietnam, when Vietnam, because when we negotiate, we always exchange document. For example, if I finish revising and then I input my comment from Vietnam to the draft agreement, I will send to you tomorrow. And then 3 days later, when you got a paper, when you got a document, you need to fill from your side your comment, your adjustment, your amendment, your change, your idea or something, your input to make it simple. Then send back to me next week. Then I send back to you. So this kind of technical working group that exchange many rounds of documentation, especially the agreement, the draft agreement. When that can consume so many days, so many months. But you know what happened? We finished our parts of review, and then we send to Vietnam. And then we ask Vietnam to send us back 1 week before the signing ceremony. So we can have enough time to give a finalization of review from Cambodia before we put into signing. And then you know what happened? We need 1 week before the signing ceremony for Vietnam to submit to us for our final review. But Vietnam, when the day was rolling to the very close day of the signing ceremony, and then we asked Vietnam, can you send to us right now? Vietnam said, oh sir, our management is busy, so we might be sending to you 2 days more. Then when the 2 days more come, we email Vietnam, can you send to us before the events coming so shortly? Because we need time to review at our ministerial level, because we got so many designation, many authority, many ministry that work on that paper, that agreement. So we need time. And then Vietnam, oh sir, we need more week, more day. So when did Vietnam submit to us for the final review before putting into signing by our top deputy prime minister? It sends to us 1 night before the signing ceremony. You know what happened? We spent the whole night sitting without having any sleep in Hanoi, screening, checking the keyword, and we found that some words are added by Vietnam. And the words are so tricky. So it remains only 1 night to review. And Vietnam already got its position in hand. You know what happened? Vietnam did not expect that we can capture very tricky word, and then we decided to withdraw. So we worked from, for example, we got the paper at 5 p.m. 1 day before the meeting, before the big meeting of our deputy prime minister. But we spent from 5 a.m. up until 3 or 4 a.m. tomorrow. And then we found a lot of tricky words that were inserted by Vietnam as the advantage for Vietnam with regards to the border control. And then we found this spot, we delete all. And when the meeting came, we spent 1 hour to talk again, and then we found that a lot of keywords have been revised by the Cambodian side. Then Vietnam was very angry. And during the meeting, Vietnam shouted, saying, "We are not happy." I cannot imagine. But the minister, the deputy minister of trade of Vietnam, and also the deputy minister of foreign affairs of Vietnam, were very angry. And they were very, I don't know to say, but the meeting were very chaotic. Vietnam cứ trao lo, sầm lót plek, alcohol plek, khăng khăng people. យើង spot បានចំណុចគាត់ទាំងអស់ហើយគាត់ចង់ដាក់ហើយគាត់ឲ្យយើងមកជប់ដើម្បី review ហើយយើងសុំទាំងយ៉ាងហោចណាស់មួយអាទិត្យមុនដើម្បីឲ្យយើង review មុនយើង revert ចុងក្រោយ sign ដោយ Prime Minister Deputy Prime Minister ទាំងពីរ and that is not the case for Cambodia alone when we work with Vietnam. Even Singapore, even Thai, even many other countries in ASEAN always remain very vigilant, very careful when they work with Vietnam, especially a trick, what we call delay trick, okay, by Vietnam, that it will submit the final document very close to the day of the final or big event, okay. So, and when we found the weakness of Vietnam, they were very, kind of, I don't know how to say, but in Khmer គឺឆោឡោឡើងកាំងហើយខំយើងឆ្លោះគ្នាពីព្រោះវៀតណាមគាត់រំកិលព្រំដែនយើងតាមរយៈការយកព្រំដែនអូដោយសារអញ្ចឹងបានរដ្ឋាភិបាលយើងព្យាយាមចាក់សាបចាក់អីចាក់សំឡងចាក់អីហ្នឹងនៅកន្លែងព្រំដែនណាដែលជាទឹកដើម្បីកុំឲ្យដីបាក់ឲ្យវៀតណាមគាត់យកអាលេសមួយគឺបើសិនជាយើងយកព្រំដែនទឹកហ្នឹងជាព្រំដែនកម្ពុជាវៀតណាមនៅក្នុងតំបន់ព្រៃណាដែលយើងចូលទៅដល់វៀតណាមគាត់នឹងយកខ្សាច់ហើយនឹងខ្សាច់ហើយនឹងកតេហ្នឹងយកដាក់ខ្សាច់ចូលក្នុងហ្នឹងហើយទម្លាក់ខ្សាច់ចូលខាងទឹកខាងវៀតណាមដើម្បីឲ្យទឹកហ្នឹងវាបុកមកដល់បាក់ច្រាំងអញ្ចឹង2ខែទៅ3ខែ4ខែទឹកនឹងបាក់អញ្ចឹងយើងចូលវៀតណាមចូលបាន2ម៉ែត្រពិសេសគឺដល់ខេត្តកណ្ដាលនៅជ្រៃធំអញ្ចឹងអានេះជារឿងមួយដែលខ្ញុំចង់ចែកម្លែកហើយវាធ្វើអញ្ចឹងតែដល់ពេលយើងចាប់បានវាចង់យកកន្លែងហ្នឹងជាកំណត់អីយើងចាប់បានយើងបន្ថែមពាក្យបន្ថែមអីក្នុងករណីបើមានការបាក់ទឹកអីបានខំចលោខឹងយើងខ្លាំងហើយវាជាម្ចាស់ផ្ទះវាខំទៅដល់ថ្នាក់ខ្ញុំមិនដឹងថាអីប៉ុន្តែអានេះជាភាសាការទូតវៀតណាមគេនិយាយមកថាសូមកិច្ចប្រជុំនឹងឆាប់ចប់ឲ្យបានលឿនដើម្បីឲ្យយើងអីណានិយាយទៅ that is Vietnam that is Vietnam and even the UK delegate sent a message to its British delegation to Vietnam saying that when you come to Vietnam be careful of the long rope delegate in Vietnam. You know long rope? Anybody can guess what does it mean by the long rope delegate in Vietnam?
Long rope, long hair, sir.
Yes, exactly. Even the UK minister warned its trade officer, not trade officer, but warned its negotiator to Vietnam to be very careful, to be very cautious with the long rope diplomacy in Vietnam. Meaning that Vietnam always deploy its long rope lady during the course of negotiation. Trust me, okay, I joined it. They even ask us to stay there, and then they will bring some to us. For example, I try to make it honest for you. But if we are very short-tempered, if we are very consoled by this kind of image, beautiful lady, not safe for the country. Okay, so be always careful with Vietnam, especially long rope diplomacy. Okay. Guy, keep it only among us because I don't want to be dangerous. Okay, it might be impacting your relation. But as the academic teacher here, just keep it among ourselves. Because if you don't keep it just among ourselves, I have no more courage, okay, to share more practical story or behind the scenes story with you guys. Because some story are quite dangerous. Okay. Sorry, guys. So we have to finish the first session right here and then come back at 7:30. Okay, we will resume our lecture at 7:30, and more study will be coming. Okay, thank you so much, guys. See you. Okay, hello guys, so welcome back. Okay, wait. Are you guys here right now? Can I move on? Hello.
Yes, sir, can, sir.
Hello, like
Okay, yes. Okay, what I'm about to say something, but okay. So yeah, we already went through the technical non-tariff measure. Okay, we got SPS, TBT, and other formality, and we also got to know the other measures that are very contingent to the protection of trade or restriction of trade. Okay, there are also many other non-tariff measures that will be included as following. Second one is the non-automatic licensing. Non-automatic licensing means that you apply for a license for import and export for one certain volume of product or item. But the license, if it is automatic licensing, means that if you come to apply for another license for another volume of export, you can only submit something very little, and then you will have one license automatically issued for you. For example, just only one fingerprint away, and then you can get one automatic license, okay, to use for you another export and import. But non-automatic licensing means that you got one license for one certain volume of export or import. So when you finish one import and export of that volume, and then when you want to export or import another volume of product or item, you need to get another license. You need to refill all information that you submitted so far. It's not automatic renewable for you. It is not automatically renewable for you, but you have to refill once again. You have to fill once again, okay, all the information that is required in the application for license. Okay. So this non-automatic licensing is quite non-technical, but it also is considered as the non-tariff barrier, non-tariff measure that cause the delay, the unnecessary delay to the flows of goods and services, because you need to wait like 2 or 3 days, or sometimes you need to exchange information or to get another photograph of you, okay, attached on a paper of the document. So it's very time consuming, and it also make you feel complicated because it's not automatic. You need to redo what have been done so far. Okay, but if it is automatic, means that you apply one, and then second time you just came here for printing or for a fingerprint, you can get another automatic license to use for another export or import of goods and services, for example. Okay, so non-automatic licensing is also one important non-tariff measure that cause the unnecessary delay, or in other words, we call it the restriction to international trade. Okay, what else? Quota. Quota is also another important hindrance to the flows of goods and services, not service, but to the flows of goods, okay, between country and country. Okay, quota means the minimum or the maximum number in the maximum quantity. Okay, the maximum quantity of goods to be allowed for import and export for certain countries. Okay, for example, if Thailand imposes quota, for example, Cambodia can export banana to Thailand at the volume of only 1,000 tons, okay, per year. See, so if Cambodia spend only 1 month, okay, to finish exporting 1,000 kilogram, 1,000 tons, okay, of mango to banana, so we got another 11 months, okay. So when we want to export more to Thailand for another volume of banana to Thailand, Thailand said that you cannot export anymore to my country because you already reach 1,000 kilogram of banana that have been set into the quota for export from Cambodia to Thailand. Okay, so if you want to re-export another volume of banana exceeding 1,000 kilogram to Thailand, you need to wait another 11 months for it to reach another year. Okay, so that you can export another 1,000 kilogram of banana. So this kind of quota, either in a way of volume, in a way of volume, in a way of wage, or in the ways of other kind of quantity, is considered as the barrier to international trade as well. Okay, because it set the maximum level, the maximum quantity, okay, of gold to be export or to be import into a certain trade partner, okay, certain trade partner. Prohibition means that you decided to prohibit the import and export of certain good because of some reason. For example, the good are very hazardous to the health of the people or health of animal or health of plant. The good is very contagious to the public morale of the importing country. For example, if Thailand wish to export the pornographic video to Cambodia, Cambodia can use the ground of para G of Article 20 of GATT, okay, to say that we will prohibit the imports of pornographic video item from Vietnam or from Thailand to Cambodia because the video content is very against, okay, the public morale in Cambodia. Okay, so this kind of prohibition is also a barrier to international trade. Okay, sometimes in the bilateral agreement between EAEU and Vietnam, Euro-Asia Economic Union and Vietnam, that was signed in 2017 or something, Vietnam did not allow the import of Kamaz truck. Kamaz truck from the member of EAEU, including Russia and Armenia. And Russia and Armenia are the expert of using Kamaz truck for the rest of the world supply. And Vietnam decided to reserve one clause for prohibiting or banning the import of Kamaz truck into Vietnam because Vietnam used the reason of protecting public security because they believe that Vietnam used the reason that the very heavy load of the Kamaz truck that will be utilized in Vietnam from Russia, from Armenia, will cause a number of public concern, especially the devastation on road safety, because the road is right now not really in good condition. So if we use more Kamaz car into Vietnam, it will destroy the condition of the road. It will deteriorate it. It will deteriorate the condition of the road in Vietnam. Okay, that is what we found in my team, CK FTA team found in the FTA between Vietnam and EAEU. Okay, so Vietnam did not allow the import of Kamaz car, okay, into its country from Russia, from Armenia, or other member of EAEU for the cause of protecting its own road safety because Kamaz is very heavy. Okay, so this kind of prohibition is also allowed by international trade law, especially Article 11, Article 20, and Article 21, as long as you certify some exemption or call out. Okay, I'm going to explain to you in the next slide. And quantity control means that they will check I think it's quite similar to quota. I don't want to explain. Price control means that the government will set the maximum level of price, for example, the minimum level of price that will determine, okay, the pricings of the good and service that is not really on the wheels of the trader. Trader will determine the price of trade and the price of good and service based on the equilibrium between the market and demand. But right now the government come to intervene and then determine, set the maximum level of pricings, the minimum levels of pricings of the good, exchange between country and country. So this is also a way of causing the barrier, okay, causing the hindrance or restriction to the international trade, because the trader, for example, they want to export, the product at a very low price in order to enjoy more market consumption in certain country. But suddenly the government decided to say that you cannot export the product into my country at a very low value, okay? Even though it is not again the anti-dumping agreement for some reason, it is causing some, serious injury to my country, to my domestic industry, and selling too low price will, kill my company. So I decided to limit the minimum price by at least 1 kilogram of sesame. Let's say that must be $3. Okay, let's say that. So you can imagine this very minimum price export, minimum price, minimum import price requirement or price control by the government is actually a restriction to international trade. Okay, so the government in the free market economy is not encouraged, okay, to intervene in price control or in controlling the price of goods and services, because it must be determined. It must be detrimental to the equilibrium between supply and demand. And if you studied economic, especially microeconomic, you will understand about equilibrium between supply and demand. Okay, the curve between supply and demand, when it reaches the equilibrium, it will satisfy the market condition. Okay, so it must be determined by the price, by the supply and demand, not by the government regulation or not by the government willingness to do something. Okay, so price control is also one important non-technical non-tariff barrier that causes the barrier to international trade. Financing measure, for example, you decided to provide some financing to the company, not to the foreign company. What else? The competition restrictive measure, the measure that you provide, one advantage to one company without advantage to another, or it is again what we call most favored nation principle, or some other measure, for example, trade-related investment measure, are also the barrier to international trade. For example, investment, before you can export your product into my country, or before you can invest, okay, your company production in Cambodia, you must purchase the local raw material in Cambodia to use your product in Cambodia. Okay, you cannot import any raw material from the rest of the world to use your product in your factory in Cambodia. So this kind of trade-related investment measure is also the barrier for international trade. I remember one case that India decided to require, China require all American company operating in China to buy local raw material in China, okay, to produce the high-end product in China by the American company there before exporting to the foreign country. So China put a condition, okay, of imposing the requirement for the company, the American company in China, to only buy local raw material, so that local farmer in China could actually gain a market, okay, from the American company working in China. So this is not acceptable under the international trade law, because this trade-related investment measure is against the international trade law, especially TRIM agreement, that they do not allow the government to set any requirement for the local company to purchase, to buy only local raw material, not from the third party. Okay. What else? Distribution restriction or restriction on postal service. For example, when you sell the product to my country, Cambodia, you cannot dispatch or distribute the product to the final destination. So you can't just sell at the border, and then when the product reaches Cambodian market, it will be the Cambodian company, it will be the Cambodian trader, Cambodian business people that will dispatch the product for their benefit. So you cannot do anything. Just export to my country, then put it at the border at the warehouse, then we will dispatch by our Cambodian trader, Cambodian company. So this kind of restriction of distributions of the product into one market is also a non-tariff barrier, a non-tariff measure to international trade, because some company, when they export to one country, they wish to have more freedom to distribute the product to the final destination. Let's say that if they export, if Thai company wish to export product to Cambodia, and when it crosses the border, it want to further, transport, it want to further distribute the good, okay, or service or item to the final consumer in Cambodia. It does not want to depend on the local company, local agency in Cambodia to deliver or to distribute the product here to the final consumer in Cambodia, because it will cost a lot. So this kind of restriction on distributions of goods, okay, when it arrives in one certain country of import, is also the barrier to international trade, okay, because it restricts the freedom of the exporting country, exporting trader, okay, exporter, I mean, to deliver or to distribute the good to the final end consumer, okay, final end consumer. What else? The restriction on the postal service. It means that when you sell your product to my country, you cannot provide other service. You only are allowed to provide. You are only allowed to sell the product, export to my country, but you cannot provide any other service. Logistics service shall be performed by the Cambodian company. Okay, delivery service, statistics service, okay, and some other service must be performed by the Cambodian or by the importing country officer, importing country company. Okay, so you can only export, but you cannot provide any extra post-sale service, the service after the sale of the good. Okay, so keep in mind, it is also a restriction to international trade, because some company, when they export something, they want to provide further, for example, delivery service, logistics service, documentation service on the good to the final end consumer. But right now, the government said that no, you cannot do so. We only allow you to export to my country, but when we get your product, you just keep there, then go back to Thailand, because the final service, the other service with regard to your product, will be performed by the Cambodian agency, by the Cambodian authority, by the Cambodian party, let's say that. So this is also one of the very usually very oftentimes apply, okay, measure, okay, by the member of the Betel Sofa, okay, the Betel Sofa postal service here, okay. Subsidy and government procurement restriction is also the barrier to international trade. I don't want to talk about subsidy because you know quite well about the word subsidy that I taught you many times. But the word government procurement restriction, it means that when you want to restrict other, okay, with regards to the way of using procurement of the government, meaning that you allow them to import the product to your country, but you, the government, have the right to only buy local product for government consumption. For example, the Cambodian government wants to build the, let's say, the new ministry building, the new building of the Ministry of Land and Urbanization or Planning. So we want cement. We allow you to import cement into Cambodia. We allow you to import construction material in Cambodia. But we, the government of Cambodia, decided to only buy the production made by the local company in Cambodia that produce construction material. So we allow you to import. We allow you to import all construction material, but we will not buy you because we are allowed by the government procurement agreement that we can only buy local product, okay, that the light product, I mean local light product, okay, in Cambodia to only use for the governmental purpose, meaning is to build the construction of the government. So the government procurement restriction is also the barrier to international trade. It means that the government will not buy any product from the foreign country, will not buy any importing product. They will only buy the product that are produced by the Cambodian people, produced by the Cambodian company, produced by the local company, okay, by using the ground of the government procurement. We want to buy local company product to build construction for the government purpose only, not for the commercial benefit. If for commercial benefit, it is again international trade law, but it is for only governmental purpose. Okay, so we have the right to only procure or only buy the product for buy local product in Cambodia, not the importing product. So this is also a restriction to international trade. Okay, barrier to international trade. What is the mean of exporting to? Let you imagine that one country is very communist. Let's say that you export product to Laos, okay, and most of the market in Laos is dominated by government company, government authority. Let's say that the private sector there is not really much involved in the marketplace. Okay, so when you export goods into that country and into Laos, and Laos government did not use your good, did not use your construction material, did not use your item exported to Laos. And most of the market activity in Laos are owned by the government. For example, market building, everything. So Laos only buy the product produced by Laos company. They do not close the border with you. You still can export to Laos, but Laos use the government procurement agreement here to buy only its local product for the governmental purpose in the market. So you got a point here. Here's the very famous agreement so far, and Cambodia is not yet a part of that agreement so far. Okay. Because government procurement agreement, okay, in Khmer ច្បាប់ស្តីអំពីលទ្ធកម្មកិច្ចព្រមព្រៀងស្តីអំពីលទ្ធកម្មរាជរដ្ឋាភិបាលលទ្ធកម្មសាធារណៈដែលរដ្ឋអាចមានសិទ្ធិប្រើប្រាស់ឬក៏ទិញតែផលិតផលដែលផលិតក្នុងស្រុកដើម្បីគោលបំណងសាធារណៈគោលបំណងរបស់រដ្ឋហ្នឹងមិនគោលបំណងសម្រាប់ផលប្រយោជន៍ពាណិជ្ជកម្មទេប៉ុន្តែសម្រាប់គោលបំណងរបស់រដ្ឋអញ្ចឹងតម្លៃដែលនាំចូលរដ្ឋអត់ទិញទេទិញតែរបស់ក្នុងស្រុកទេអញ្ចឹងសួរតែពីណាប្រឹងបានអត់អាចប្រឹងបានទេពីព្រោះនេះគឺជាសិទ្ធិដែលរដ្ឋទទួលបាននៅក្នុងកិច្ចព្រមព្រៀងស្តីអំពីgovernment procurement ដែលជាកិច្ចព្រមព្រៀងមួយរបស់ WTO. Okay, ខ្ញុំសូមបញ្ជាក់ឡើងហ្នឹង What else? Intellectual property, okay, some it's not technical, meaning that the government, yeah, we allow you to import, but before you can import, we will check whether your product are original item or not, whether they are the copy from the other. I remember last week, last month or something, we got one cosmetic company in Cambodia arrested, not arrested, but inspected by the police officer, economic police officer, for frauding, okay, for copying the original version of the perfume. Anybody remember that case? One very famous perfume shop in Cambodia. I got like mold or something. Anybody remember?
Remember, but forget the name.
Yeah, but I remember just like mode or mode or something.
Mode store, teacher.
Yes, exactly, mode store. Yes, yeah. You can see here the government using intellectual property restriction. Okay, if the government found that all the perfume there are eligibly copying from the original version sold in the foreign country that are protected, that are registered at the intellectual property authority in that country, and who are the member of World Customs Organization as well. So the government in Cambodia has the right, okay, to seize, to confiscate all the copied item, copied product that infringe the intellectual property right of the foreign country, because Cambodia is also the part of trade agreement, trade-related intellectual property agreement under the WTO, and also the member of the World Customs Organization. While the country of the original product, of the original perfume sold in Cambodia, is also the member of the World Customs Organization and a member of the trade-related intellectual property agreement we call trade agreement under the WTO. So we have the obligation to protect the intellectual property respect, okay, for the other member. Okay, you cannot. Thai is also the member of the WTO, the member of trade agreement, and then we allow our importer to buy a lot of copied version, okay, copy versions of the item from Thailand to sell in Cambodia. What about the IP protection in Thailand? Okay, what they can file complaint to the WCO, World Customs Organization, or they can also not World Customs, World Intellectual Property Organization, WIPO. Okay, they can file a complaint to WIPO to against Cambodian government for not protecting the IP protection, IP right of the Thai original producer of perfume, because Cambodian government allow the importer or Cambodian people to copy the perfume from Thailand in Thai and then sell in Cambodia for at a very low price, affordable price. Okay, but the product is actually the replica, okay, the duplicated, okay, or the copy versions of the original perfume, okay, sold in Thailand. So this kind of IP is also the barrier, okay, to international trade. For example, if the government want to protect it, it just say that the product is not having any enough substance, okay, of the original versions of the product. So we can arrest, we can confiscate, we can seize it, okay. Rule of origin is also the barrier for international trade. We allow EU allow Cambodia to export to EU for free, duty-free, quota-free, but EU will block the imports of goods from Cambodia if EU found that the goods from Cambodia are not originally produced in Cambodia, are not originally produced by Cambodian. Let's say that the government of Cambodia, EU authority require EU government require Cambodian government to produce the product by using at least 40% of local content. It can be local raw material, local labor force, okay, local technology, okay, or other means that accumulate to equal 40% of the whole content of the product. And then suddenly, when Cambodia export one shoe, one pair of shoe, then EU found that the shoe is not made of local content of Cambodia by 40%, but only 15%. While the rest 65%, while the rest 75% or 85%, I mean, is from the foreign country. Let's say that Cambodia got the raw material from China, Cambodia got the machine from Vietnam, Cambodia got the worker from Bangladesh. We only got a factory here that accumulate that amounts to only 15% of the overall production of the shoe. So when EU found that Cambodia did not reach the requirement of using 40% of local content for the production of shoe, EU will not allow Cambodia to export this kind of shoe to EU, quota-free, duty-free. We can still export to EU, but again, we export with the paying of tariff. Okay. When I was talking on TV regarding the WTO, I also specify about the case of EBA, because I got that in 2007, 2019 or something. Many people were very much talking about EBA because it was the year of political tension, and then everybody talked about EBA, withdrawal by the EU will pose pressure on the government of Cambodia. Then if I said that do not worry much about EBA. Okay, of course we will lose in a short term, period, but it must be an indicator to make us to be stronger, because we are gonna leave LDC status in 2027. Then we will lose EBA automatically. So by losing 20% by now, for now, it makes us ready it also pushes us for some reform. It also alert the government to do something more in order to reach international standard. So do not care too much about the loss of 20% of EBA. And I also specify that the removal of 20% of EBA or the removal of 100% of EBA does not block the trade between Cambodia and EU. Cambodia still can export product to EU, okay, but not under the duty-free, quota-free scheme or EBA scheme anymore. We need to pay tariff or untariff rate. Okay, it means that the WTO and EU is also the member of the WTO. EU has no right to block any trade. Okay, we can impose the barrier. EU can impose the barrier, but we cannot block because under the Article 123. It is the requirement for member to open. Okay. The level of tariff is depending on negotiation, concession, but the first condition to trade is to open. You cannot close any border with any member of the WTO. Okay. It is completely again WTO. Okay. Again WTO. Okay. Next week, oh no, not next week, but on 11 December, next 2 weeks, I will be on the live show once again, but for the trade talk, the talk between the US and China tension, especially the Quad or B or I trade war between US and China, and maybe around 1 or 30-minute talk, exclusive talk. Not yet ready so far, but I will talk just like in a natural way. Okay, not prepare much because everything is here. Okay, just got to raise some statistic to support my argument. Okay. Intellectual property, group origin, and other export-related measure. And why do I put export-related measure, other related export measure? It is to clarify that non-tariff measures are not exhaustive. You know, but exhaustive, it means that it is not end right here because there are many more designs of non-tariff measure that cannot be countable. For example, let's say that right now we got only 10 measures that are considered as non-tariff measure. But who knows that next month, the government create or design new measure, okay, in order to restrict import and export as non-tariff measure. That is why I put other export-related measure or import-related measure, because it means that the measure here are not exhaustive, meaning that they are evolving year by year depending on the real circumstances faced by the government, okay, or depending on the economic situation faces or the global. Let's say that if the pandemic comes, if another pandemic comes, let's say that the new series variant of COVID-19 emerge in the next 1 year, new trade measure will be designed, new trade measure, new trade restrictive measure will be developed by the state in order to restrict export and import for local shortage or something. Okay, so you can see here, it's very non-exhaustive. It's very evolving. It's not static. It's not complete. It's not saturated. Okay, it is always something extra and developed. Okay, year by year depending on the circumstances faced by the state. Okay, so again, these are the non-technical and technical non-tariff measures. Okay, that are right now causing the barrier to international trade, especially among the members of the WTO. Okay, so I hope you got a point. I don't ask whether you got or not, because even though you got or you don't get, just go through the flow first, and then you can ask the question later on. Okay, because I cannot spend so much time on some repetitive information. Okay. 4 key aspects of non-tariff measure. Okay, so let us go to the heart of the chapter right here. So there are 4 key type or key aspect of non-tariff measure. The first one is what we call QR, quantitative restriction on trade in goods. Second one, other non-tariff barrier for trade in goods. Third one is the market access barrier to trade in service. And the last one is other barrier to trade and service as well. Okay, so there are 4 aspects here. I'm gonna underline one by one for you in a detailed fashion. Okay. What is QR? Okay. Actually, my research interest was lying in the QR right here. In my study, in my work, I always consulted or work on the QR aspect of trade and goods. QR here refer to the abbreviation of quantitative restriction. Okay. Quantitative restriction គឺការរឹតបន្តឹងជាបរិមាណទៅលើតំណែងទៅលើការនាំចេញនាំចូលឬក៏ទៅលើពាណិជ្ជកម្មនៃតំណែងគេអ្វីទៅជាការរឹតបន្តឹងជាបរិមាណ that very much popular use in the era of COVID-19 pandemic 2020 and 2021 right here, and also the food crisis in 2008. We saw a very surging trend of using QO by the member of the WTO. And because of QO application by many countries of the WTO during the COVID-19 pandemic, the DG of the WTO decided to resign because he tried to implore, he tried to console, he tried to convince the member of the WTO not to impose QO on import and export during the COVID-19, because everybody need goods and service, everybody need medical supply, everybody need medical equipment in order to support the treatment of the patient across the world. But right now you export, you restrict the export, you block the export for some reason. Okay, it is legally admissible under international trade law because you meet some exception, but in the humanity sense, okay, it means that you do not intend to help the rest of the world. You only care about your own people. You do not care about the international people, the global people. Okay, so the DG of the WTO, Director General of the WTO decided to resign, okay, in 2020. Okay, so it's very sad to see this, but it happened, and then right now we got a new DG from Nigeria. Okay, so QO are the measure used to limit the quantity of goods destined for import and export. Okay, again, QO are the measure used to limit the quantity of goods destined for import and export. The limit in the forms of QO can be in the way of number unit. For example, I will limit your export to be only around 1,000 motorbike per year. Okay, unit, okay, wage, I will allow you to export only 100 kilogram of banana to Thailand per day. Let's say that volume or even volume. Okay, so this is called the limit of quantity. Okay, in the quantitative restriction, I make it simple as QO. Okay, and there are 4 different types of QO. First one is prohibition and ban, that is made in Article 11 of GATT. Okay. What else? Second one is import and export quota. It can be either global or bilateral. And third one is import and export licensing. As I said, when you want to export something, you need to get license from the importing country or exporting country first before you can export. So this kind of requirement will cause unnecessary delay and also incur some expense from your side. You need to spend more money for the license issuance by the other party in order to get your product, your item, your good be allowed, okay, to import into that country, to be imported into that country. So this kind of export and import licensing requirement also cause the obstacle or unnecessary delay to the import and export of goods from the country to the rest of the world. Okay, other export, other quantitative restriction, other QO, I mean, okay, and calibrate quota. Okay, you hear the word quota. When you hear the word quota, it refers to the limit. Okay, it refers to the limit of quantity of export to one country. Okay, let's say that, as I said, I want to clarify the case of Thailand. Thailand will impose a quota of only 1,000 kilograms of banana imported from Cambodian to Thailand within 1 year per year. It means that. What about tariff rate quota? What is the difference between tariff rate quota and quota? Okay, quota. Anybody can tell me what is T or Q? We know Q, we know quota. Quota is indeed the limit of quantity of import and export, okay, to certain country, okay, at certain level, at certain quantity, okay, very easy. But what is tariff rate quota? Okay, QO, quota is a part of QO, is a part of quantitative restriction in trade and goods. But what about T or Q? Tariff rate quota. Is it also a quota? Come on, guys. Anybody can guess? What does it mean by the word tariff rate quota? Come on.
This one, I think they combine tariff and quota.
How? Combine how? In what way?
Like if you like import, no. If you import more into the country, I will charge high tariff. If you import less, I will charge low tariff. Is that like that?
Okay. almost right, but not yet to the point. Okay, when you are given a quota, for example, 1,000 kilogram of banana to Thailand. Let's say that Thai government, at the consent of Mr. Prayut Chan-o-cha, decided to give a quota of 1,000 kilogram of banana from Cambodia to Thailand per month. Okay, per month. Okay, it means that 1,000 kilogram of banana from Cambodia to Thailand will be duty free. Okay, will be duty free. I mean no tariff. Okay, or will be very low tariff impose. Let's say that only 5% of tariff imposed on 1,000 kilogram of banana exported to Thailand within 1 month. Okay, so if within 1 month you spend only 3 days or 4 days, and then you finish exporting 1,000 kilogram of banana, but you have more banana. Okay, you have more banana for exporting into Thailand, but right now within only 3 days, they give you one month, okay, for 1,000 kilogram of banana. But right now you spend only 3 days, and then you exported all the 1,000 kilogram of banana. But you have so many more banana, many more kilogram of banana in Cambodia, deemed for exporting into Thailand. But you face the quota. So can you export to Thailand? Can you export the rest of the banana to Thailand under the quota? If Thailand only provide quota, you cannot export because your product already reach the quantity limit allowed by Thailand within 1 year or 1 month. You can export the rest of banana exceeding 1,000 kilogram until it come another month. Okay, not day 4, not day 5. Okay, you have to wait like 27 more days in order to reach the new month so that you can export the rest of the banana by another 1,000 kilogram of another month. But right now you want to export more beyond the quota. You will ask Thailand for granting you what we call tariff rate quota. It means that tariff rate quota, it means that when you export, when you already complete, okay, or reach the limit number in quota, you can export more. But the product exceeding 1,000 kilogram of banana will face ordinary and duty. Okay, it means that they will impose ordinary tariff for the product that exceed the quantity in quota. You still can export. It is not quota. It is TOQ. Okay, it means that tariff rate quota. You still can export, but the product beyond 1,000 kilogram of banana in the quota and the new product, I mean extra product that beyond that, will be facing ordinary tariff rate, not free tariff rate, or not 5% or not 2% tariff rate as in quota. Okay, you got a point. So it is called tariff rate quota. Refer to the tariff that you have to pay for the product that already exceed the quantity set in quota. You got a point? Okay. If only quota, when you reach the limit quantity, you cannot export more within certain period of time provided in quota. But if you are given tariff rate quota, it means that even though you reach the limit quantity in quota, you still can export exceeding that quantity, but the existing quantity of product must face ordinary tariff rate. They will not block you, they will not stop you from exporting exceeding the limit in the quota, but you need to pay the tariff, ordinary custom duty, and duty, like 10% or 50% for the product that exceed the limit in quota. We don't care how much more kilogram that you will need to export to Thailand, but the more you export, the more you need to pay tariff. Okay. But if you don't want to face more tariff, just wait for another month. So that the new month comes, you can get another 1,000 kilogram of banana in another quota of another new month. But here you want to export more because a lot of Vietnam, a lot of banana is still remaining in your country. You want to export more to Thailand. You can export under the tariff rate quota, but you need to pay for the extra product that exceed 1,000 kilogram in quota. You got a point, guys? Okay. Easy, very easy, right? Understand? TOQ. Come on, very easy, guy.
No, sure. Could you explain like I'm fine? I'm still not sure.
Okay. If Thailand impose tariff, if Thailand impose quota, let's say that you can export to Thailand. I mean, Cambodian can export banana to Thailand within only 1,000 kilogram per month. Okay, per month. So yeah, per month. So if you spend only 4 or 5 days, okay, or 10 days, or the day that is within 1 month, reaching 1,000 kilogram of banana in the quota, you cannot export more. You have to wait another month to get another 1,000 kilogram of new quota, because 1 month they give you 1,000 kilogram of quota. So if you reach 1,000 kilogram of quota, you cannot export to Thailand for now, but you need to wait for another month. But if you get tariff rate quota from Thailand, Thailand allow you to, okay, I forgot to mention, the quota means that the product that you export in the quota, 1,000 kilogram, will not face tariff, or face a very concessional tariff, like 2% only. There is quota. And beyond that, you cannot export to Thailand. But tariff rate quota, even though you spend 3 or 4 days within 1 month, okay, 3 or 4 days, okay, you reach 1,000 kilogram of banana to Thailand. That is already complete. That already complete the quota provided by Thailand. But if Thailand provide TOQ, tariff rate quota, it means that you still can export more banana for the rest of the day in that month. For the banana that exceed 1,000 kilogram, but the product, the banana that exceed 1,000 kilogram, okay, in the quota, will need to face ordinary tariff rate. Okay, we need to face ordinary tariff rate. Okay, because you already reached the quota, but right now we give you TOQ, meaning that you can export more within 1 month. More, you can export 3,000 more, 4,000 more kilogram of banana to Thailand within that month, within the same month, exceeding the number provided in the quota. But the 3,000 kilogram, the 4,000 extra kilogram of banana within that month must face ordinary tariff rate, not zero tariff rate in the quota, or not 2%, or we call concessional 2% tariff rate in the quota. You need to pay 5 or 10% of tariff for your banana product as the ordinary custom duty, or we call and custom duty. The rest of the world that export a banana to Thailand will also needs to pay 10%, okay, or 15%, depending on the rate provided by Thailand. Okay, so tariff rate quota, even though you reach the limit quantity in the quota, you still can export more, exceeding it, as long as you are willing to pay the tariff, ordinary tariff, for the exceeding product from the quota. We call it tariff rate quota. In quota, if you reach that number, you cannot export more. Keep it, cannot export more, because you already reached the quota. But here, even though you reach, you can export more, but you need to pay tariff for the rest of the product right here, the existing product right here. Very easy. Got a point? Come on.
Yeah, sure. Yes.
But the rest, are you fine? Come on. Quite easy. Anybody is not clear? Quota គេឲ្យយើង 1000 គីឡូក្នុងមួយខែ ដល់ពេលយើងនាំចេញតែ 3-4 ថ្ងៃ គឺគ្រប់ 1000 គីឡូ អញ្ចឹងអសល់ 7 8 20 27 28 ថ្ងៃទៀត 27 26 ថ្ងៃទៀតនៅក្នុងខែហ្នឹងដែលគេឲ្យហ្នឹងយើងអាចនាំចេញទៀតទេគេអញ្ចឹង 1000 គីឡូក្នុងមួយខែដែលយើង reach នោះគឺ 1000 គីឡូដែលគេអត់យកពន្ធឬក៏គេយកពន្ធតែយកពន្ធតិចអាហ្នឹងគឺគេឲ្យតែ quota ប៉ុន្តែបើគេឲ្យ tariff rate quota មានន័យថាទោះបីជាយើងក្នុងរយៈពេលមួយខែប៉ុន្តែតែ 3 ថ្ងៃគឺយើង reach a number ដែលគេឲ្យក្នុង quota ដែលយកពន្ធតិចឬក៏អត់យកពន្ធប៉ុន្តែយើងនៅតែអាចនាំចេញតំណែងដដែលហ្នឹងលើសពីហ្នឹងលើសពីចំនួនដែលគេកំណត់ហ្នឹងប៉ុន្តែអាតំណែងដែលយើងលើសហ្នឹង ត្រូវបង់ពន្ធធម្មតាអត់មានពន្ធសូន្យអត់មានពន្ធទាបដូចនៅក្នុង quota ទេគឺយើងត្រូវបង់ពន្ធធម្មតាដូចគេដូចឯងណាពីព្រោះយើងជាប់ quota 1000 គីឡូក្រាមហ្នឹងអត់បង់ពន្ធទេប៉ុន្តែដល់ពេលត្រឹមតែ3ថ្ងៃគេឲ្យយើងមួយខែតែ3ថ្ងៃយើង reach 1000 បាត់អញ្ចឹងយើងចង់ហើយតំណែងយើងមាន5 6000នៅផ្ទះ6000 គីឡូហើយគីឡូក្រាមអញ្ចឹងយើងចង់នាំចូលthe rest ហ្នឹងប៉ុន្តែដល់ពេលយើងនាំចូលទៅប្រទេសហ្នឹងគេថាអ្នកឯងនាំចូលបានប៉ុន្តែអ្នកឯងត្រូវបង់ពន្ធដូចគេដូចឯងពីព្រោះអត់បង់ពន្ធមានតែ1000ទេក្នុង quota អត់បង់ពន្ធក្នុង quota ហ្នឹងមានតែ1000ទេឥឡូវអ្នកឯង reach number ហ្នឹងហើយអញ្ចឹងអ្នកឯងត្រូវបង់2-3000នេះទៀតត្រូវបង់ពន្ធ 5% ទៅតាម bound rate ដែលខ្ញុំបានដាក់កំណត់ទៅលើផលិតផលបានណាហ្នឹងអាហ្នឹងគឺ tariff rate quota វាមានលក្ខណៈអនុគ្រោះជាង quota ត្រង់ថា quota តែយើងចប់យើងបំពេញចំនួនដែលគេផ្ដល់ឲ្យហើយពេលដែលសះសល់គឺយើងអាចនិយាយបានទេទោះយើងដល់ពេលថ្មីមួយខែមួយឆ្នាំយើងទៅតាមការកំណត់នៃ quota ប៉ុន្តែនេះគឺទោះបីជាយើង reach the limit number of quality of product ប៉ុន្តែយើងនៅតែអាចនាំចូលលើសនឹងបានក្នុងពេលដែលសះសល់ដរាបណាគេដរាបណាមិនយើងហ៊ានបង់ពន្ធឲ្យគេគឺពន្ធទូទៅ MFN rate បើបានអាណាហ្នឹងគឺថៃដាក់ពន្ធ 20% សម្រាប់បានអាណាគឺមុនក្នុង quota យើងអត់បង់ទេប៉ុន្តែលើស quota នេះនៅសល់ពេលនេះហើយនៅសល់ផលិតផលក្នុងផ្ទះយើងមកប្រភពនេះយើងត្រូវបង់ឲ្យគេ 20% ប្រទេសផ្សេងត្រូវបង់ឲ្យ 20% ដែរហើយគេហៅថា tariff rate quota គឺ tariff ដែលគេដាក់សម្រាប់តែផលិតផលដែលលើស quota TRQ got a point very clear very easy right I think not that hard okay
Yes, like
what about the rest are you fine confirm first before I move on
Fine, sir.
okay so my question is that if you go to see this point, okay, there are 4 different types of QR, right? And we got quota here, right? Export quota here, import or export quota. What about TRQ? Is it also a QR? Come on, anybody can give me the answer whether TRQ here is also a QR or not. Come on.
Is sure.
Why is?
Because it has like in QR they let us export but with a special or no rate at all, and TRQ they also have the same mechanism.
You know, when we talk about QR, we don't care about tariff. We don't use a tariff measure as the QR, right? So in quota, okay, they don't care about tariff. They only care about your quantity. If you reach the quantity, you cannot export more. It is a QR because it is about the quantitative restriction, not the tariff restriction. It is the quantitative, the number restriction. But tariff rate quota, we still can export, okay? But we only need to pay more tariff beyond for the product that exceed the quota. So is there any restriction? Is there any quantitative restriction for TRQ right now? Again, we don't talk about tariff because tariff is not a part of QR, okay? Tariff is tariff measure and QR is non-tariff measure, okay? And right now, if you export product exceeding the quota, and then you need to pay more tariff, is it a QR? Is it a quantitative restriction? Okay, is it a QR, guy? Come on. I'm very desperate.
no.
Yes, it is. It is not QR, okay? Because it does not restrict your quantity of export. You still can export as long as you pay tariff. And tariff is not a part of non-tariff measure. Tariff is a tariff measure. And QR is a part of non-tariff measure. So we talk only about the measure that is non-tariff. So quantitative restriction is the non-tariff measure, okay? And TRQ here, we still can export, but we need to pay tariff. But we don't care about tariff. So TRQ here is not the it's not the QO, because it does not restrict the quantity. You still can export, even though you exceed the quota. You still can export. We do not restrict your quantity. We do not impose quantitative restriction, but you need to pay for the product that exceed the quota. We don't limit you. Okay, right now you finish 1,000 kilogram of export into Thailand, so stop exporting. Limit here. You need to wait another month to ELASPE to get over. We have to wait another month to get over, so that you can have another quota. But here, no, even though you exit, even though you reach, and then right now you export the product, exiting the product in quota, you still can export, but you need to pay tariff. And tariff is not NTM. Tariff is tariff measure. So tariff rate quota here is not tariff, is not QO, right? Because you still can export. We do not restrict any quantity of your product. You only need to pay more tariff beyond the quota. You got a point? Come on. Clear now?
Clear, sir.
Okay. Okay. Because P or Q is not Q or, you know, this lesson is very complicated, but I try to emphasize for you, and then you have to note down carefully, because you will not see the same lesson second time in your life. Maybe I can say in your life, because if you do not work for Ministry of Commerce, or even you work for Ministry of Commerce but no training on that, you will not see this kind of lecture once again. Okay, so note down, P or Q is very kind of technical enough, but it is not a part of QO. Because it is not a part of QO, it is not prohibited under WTO law. WTO law Article 11 only prohibit the use of QO, either quota, okay, either import and export license, okay, or other forms of other measure will not be allowed. Okay, will not be allowed. And which law that say about that? Let's go to see that article with me about QO. Okay, wait. Okay, here, Article 11 of GATT. Article 11 of GATT, the more relevant article with regards to the QO. Again, Odom, again, because you are very active and you can read loudly. Can you read Article 11 for me? Parawon.
Article 11 of GATT, most relevant. No prohibition or restriction or other duties, taxes, and other charges, whether made effective through quota, import or export license, or other measures, shall be instituted or maintained by any members on the importation of any product of the territory of any other members, or on the exportation or sale for the export of any product.
Yes. Can you tell me what does it mean? To make it short in 2 or 3 words.
Cannot tell, very confusing.
Okay. It means that, you know, the word other than mean excluding. Okay. Other than here mean excluding. Did you see the word other than, guys? See my cursor here? Okay. See the word other than? Line number 1. Okay.
See.
Okay. Other than UT, tax, and other charge. UT, tax, and other charge are in tariff measure. I already explained to you. So they say that no prohibition or restriction except for or including or other than UT, tax, and other charge. It means that UT, tax, and other charge are not included in this article. Again, UT, charge, tariff, or other charge are not included in this article. They are included. The word are here, but the word other than here means that they are included. So let me read it in short. No prohibition or restriction, okay, whether made effective through quota, whether made effective through import and export license, or whether made effective through other measure, shall be maintained, shall be instituted by the member on importation and exportation of the product to the other country. It means that they are not allowed, I mean, members are not allowed to prohibit or to restrict import and export, okay, in the way of quota, in the way of import and export license, and in the way of other measure. ភាសាខ្មែរគឺលើកលែងតែរឿងពន្ធរឿងគយហើយនឹង other charge ប្រទេសជាសមាជិក WTO មិនអនុញ្ញាតឲ្យប្រើប្រាស់ការរដ្ឋបတ်ឬក៏ការហាមឃាត់ការនាំចេញនាំចូលទេទាំងក្នុងទម្រង់ជា quota ទាំងក្នុងទម្រង់ជា import and export license ឬក៏ other measure អញ្ចឹងពាក្យដែលគេ question គឺ what do you mean by what measure quota យើងយល់ហើយអត់មាន tariff rate quota នេះនិយាយពី quota វាជា QR import and export license ស្រួលយល់ខ្ញុំយល់មិញគឺយើងសុំ license ដើម្បីនាំចេញតែដល់ពេលគេអត់ឲ្យ license គឺយើងនាំចេញបានយើងសុំ license ដើម្បីនាំចូលគេឲ្យ license គេយើងនាំចូលបាន other measure ជាស្អីអញ្ចឹងច្បាប់វាឈួតត្រង់ហ្នឹង that is the crazy point of law they always put something that is very vague and then let the lawyer explain okay let the lawyer gain a very much amount of money millions of US dollars from the country for the dispute at WTO from the vagueness of the keyword here what do you mean by other measure okay. Export quota is also other measure minimum import price requirement as in the case of EEC economic community European economic community minimum import price 1978 this is also a part of other measure minimum import price requirement Japan Semiconductor 1998 this is also a part of the other measure okay or even discretionary or non-automatic licensing system in the case of India in 1999 this is also the case of other measure so if you want to know whether these are the other measure that are mentioned in Article 11 here go to read the judgment of the court there the judgment of the dispute settlement body especially the panel and the appellate body you will see whether export quota whether minimum import price requirement minimum export price requirement or discretionary or non-automatic licensing system are falling into the ambit of the word other measure okay so Article 11 here make it very clear that members of the WTO are not allowed you know Article 11 here is a two-folded regulation a two-folded provision គឺថាមួយ article មួយនេះគឺព្រួយមួយបានសាច់ពីរព្រួយមួយបានសាច់ពីរមិនបានន័យថា export restriction ជា quota ជា import license export license ហើយនឹង other measure មិនត្រូវបានអនុញ្ញាតឲ្យប្រើប្រាស់ទេប៉ុន្តែមួយខាងទៀតគឺ UT tax ហើយនឹង other charge ត្រូវបានឲ្យប្រើប្រាស់ពីព្រោះគេដាក់ other than មិនន័យថាអត់ហាមឃាត់ទេអូខេអត់ហាមឃាត់ទេ no prohibition shall be made អូខេអញ្ចឹង UT tax ហើយនឹង other charge នេះអត់ហាមឃាត់ទេបានន័យថាហើយក្នុងមាត្រាផ្សេងអត់មាននិយាយថាសមាជិករបស់ WTO អាចដាក់ពន្ធអាចអត់មានគេនិយាយចឹងប៉ុន្តែមាត្រា11នេះគឺនិយាយថាយើងមិនអាចដាក់ quota មិនអាចដាក់ import export license មិនអាចដាក់ទេប៉ុន្តែយើងអាចលើកលែងតែ UT charge ហើយនឹង other tax ឬក៏ other charge អញ្ចឹងបានន័យថាច្បាប់មាត្រា11នេះគឺបែងចែកមកយ៉ាងច្បាស់ចំនួន2ទី1ហ្នឹងហាមដាក់ QR quota ប៉ុន្តែ tax UT ហើយនឹង other charge អាចយកបានអញ្ចឹងមាត្រានេះគឺជាបេះដូងនៃ WTO ជាបេះដូងដែលប្រទេសទាំងអស់តែតែប្រើប្រាស់ក្នុងការចរចាបើថាច្បាប់ WTO អត់បានហាមឃាត់អត់ឲ្យយកពន្ធអត់បានហាមឃាត់អត់ឲ្យយកពន្ធគយអត់អាចហាមឃាត់អត់ឲ្យយក other charge and fee ទេប៉ុន្តែគេហាមឃាត់មិនឲ្យយក quota import export license and other measure ហើយមាត្រាផ្សេងអត់មាននិយាយថាប្រទេសជាសមាជិក WTO អនុញ្ញាតឲ្យយកពន្ធយកអត់មាននិយាយយ៉ាងទេគឺមាត្រានេះពីរផ្លូវតែម្ដងអាមួយអត់ឲ្យអាមួយឲ្យយល់អ្វីដែលខ្ញុំនិយាយគ្នាយើងមាត្រានេះសំខាន់បំផុតណាហើយខ្ញុំធ្វើសារណាខ្ញុំគឺតែមាត្រានឹងមួយគត់ដែលជាចង់40 50ទំព័រសិតតែ case ជាងមើលតែ China raw material តែ China សម្រាប់ចិត្តរដ្ឋបတ်ការនាំចេញរបស់ខ្លួនតាក់ទងទៅនឹង raw material ទៅ EU និងជប៉ុនហើយ EU ជប៉ុនត្រូវការ raw material ពី China ដើម្បីយកទៅផលិត technology ជា chip ក្នុង technology ជា chip នៃ product ដើម្បីឲ្យ system រត់ជា chip ទូរស័ព្ទ semiconductor អញ្ចឹងទៅប៉ុន្តែ China គាត់បတ်ការនាំចេញដើម្បីបំបិត production chain នៅក្នុងជប៉ុនហើយនិង EU អញ្ចឹងជប៉ុនហើយនិង EU គេប្តឹងថា China ហ្នឹងគាត់បានប្រើប្រាស់គេ other measure នេះដែលគេអត់អនុញ្ញាត other measure ហ្នឹងគឺ export restriction វាមាននៅក្នុងហ្នឹងគេ export quota ទៅ China នេះអញ្ចឹង còn khen mũi dương an tại appellate body hay nâng panel report nó từ đọc tầm po chieng mà nói bỏ xì ta ta bịa mũi này tầm mấy chào con bỏ xì mấy và lại na là cái thay chân bật chỉ là bắt cái lại na là cái là chân bỏ xì là chân mà đặt bật tê tạo cho bắp hay là chân dùng hàng tại exception A cái chẳng cái lại những khi chia bẹt đâu này để bị thì ồ hỏi lúc đi chọn một pot cứ mitra muối mitra bấy national treatment hai những mitra bọc muối này chúng sẽ cứ riêng payment covid payment food crisis đạiประเทศทั้งอ๋อบัตรการนมจริงบัตรการนมโชว์ตุกแต่ปราบปรามน้องสล็อกมิตราละมุ้ยคือจิมิตราได้โรวอลจึงเก๋ตัวจำปีบัวประเทศปราโควตาประเทศปรา export license หรือก็ประเทศปราเดอร์เมเซอร์ทำไมบัตรการนมจริงการนมโชว์จึงมือเปีย no prohibition หรือก็ restriction แต่การบัตรแต่การบัตรคือมันเติมบานอนุญาตเถอะตรงแต่ยังไอ้cái importation ให้ยัง exportation hereอันนี้bà dương mình sẽ bắt dương anh nhẹ nhàng vô lên bên trái để nhóm bọ prai dương dương bọ prai bị lược lên tại pun cối lược lên tại ada chai khó bị nắng cứ sớm chất mình là nhát ở đã prohibition rồi restriction chỉ không tầm rong quota chỉ không tầm import export license nên ada measure thếแต่ตรงแต่ในการนมเจงการนมโจในประเทศพอตกลงประเทศด้านใดระบบเบทโอให้เปลี่ยนได้เวทคือ what do you mean by the measure what did it include? What were the measures alone here? So it must be case by case. It must be passed on the jurisprudence or precedent of the cases. Okay. Clear now? Okay. Any question, guys, before I conclude my lecture today? And then we will be resuming our lecture in the next week. And then if we finish next week, the week after next week, we'll be having the first, not first, but the midterm examination. Okay. Did you get something new from the lecture today? Let me using for this way.
Yes, sir. Get QR and T of Q.
Okay. But I want to remind that Article 11 here is the heart of the WTO law. And also it's the heart of COVID-19 pandemic. If you don't believe, check now. Okay, Google right now. Your phone or your computer, your PC right here. You can check Article 11 and COVID-19. A lot of articles talk about Article 11 of GATT and COVID-19, especially the export restriction of goods for the global supply. Because everybody, every state of the WTO decided to stockpile, decided to hoard it, decided to hoard HOARD. Okay, hoard means nàyคือตกคือการ stock ตกตำแหน่งโดย stockpile เนี่ย stockpile คือติง stock ตกដាក់ក្នុងផ្ទះអត់ឲ្យនេះពីព្រោះខ្លាចប្រជាពលរដ្ឋឯខ្លួនឯងស្លាប់អត់មានអុកស៊ីហ្សែនគឺ EU ទុកអុកស៊ីហ្សែនទុក medical mask ទុកអីអត់នាំចេញទាំងអស់ប្រទេសក្នុងអាហ្វ្រិកក្នុងអាស៊ីគឺក្នុង COVID-19 2020 នេះគឺសឹងតែប្តឹងទៅ WTO ប៉ុន្តែអា WTO នោះវាអត់ដើរទៀតវាបាត់ DG វាបាត់ appellate body បាត់អស់វិញយើងអញញ៉ៃណាស់ក្នុង2020គឺជាឆ្នាំដែលអញញ៉ៃបំផុតហើយអត្រាមកគោទៀតអញ្ចឹងគឺ very stressful year 2020, the most remarkable year in human history. និយាយមើលដឹងហើយដឹងអត់កើត trade war ក៏នៅក្នុងឆ្នាំ2020វាយគ្នាខ្លាំងក្លាសង្គ្រាមក៏នៅឆ្នាំ2020បញ្ហានៅអាហ្វហ្គានីស្ថានចាប់ផ្ដើមនៅឆ្នាំ2020និយាយទៅសុទ្ធតែឆ្នាំដែលគ្រោះថ្នាក់ឲ្យតែឆ្នាំគុតយើងមើលក្នុងទ្រឹស្ដី IR មិនមែនគ្រូទាយទេប៉ុន្តែឲ្យតែឆ្នាំគុតគឺ IR នឹងតែមានបញ្ហាអូខេចឹងមានអីចង់សួរបើអត់មានអីសួរទេយើងបញ្ចប់ត្រឹមហ្នឹងហើយយើងអាចបន្តនៅសប្តាហ៍ក្រោយហើយសួរសរុបហើយខ្ញុំនឹង upload slide នេះផង slide ចាស់ឲ្យគ្នាយើងផងដើម្បីបានមើលអូខេខ្ញុំត្រូវការញ៉ាំបាយដែរ Can we conclude right now, guys? I'm so exhausted anyway. No question?
No question.
Okay. So I need to say goodbye and have a nice holiday. Enjoy the trip with your loved one and family. And I apologize last week that I decided to steal your holiday time with your family and loved one. But again, I have no choice. Okay, I want you all to gain more than to lose. Okay, during my lecture here. Have a nice day. See you next week with the remaining parts of our chapter today. Okay, thank you, guys. Bye bye.